It gives you a
has led the Reds to a pair of National League Central Division championships over the last 3 years. His lineup today: Derek Robinson leads off at center. Zach Cozart, Joey Votto, Xavier Paul out in left field, Jake Bruce in right, Todd Frazier at third, the former Indian Jason Donald at second, Devin Mazzaracco catching Matt Latos. Only fitting, Cleveland playing Cincinnati, that Justin Masterson would be on the mound. He is a native Buckeye.
You're right about that. He's from Beaver Creek, which is a suburb of Dayton, Ohio. And, of course, he probably is thrilled to be on the mound, not only against the Reds, but he will be the opening day starter for the Indians. Won double digits in wins as each of his last 2 seasons, Justin did. And he's a guy that really gives right-handers fits. If you can see his delivery, low 3/4 arm action, great movement on his fastball. I think the world of potential for him.
Now, he was really, really good 2 years ago. Last year, a slight step back, but a lot more pressure on him. They were really counting on him last year. And clearly they're counting on him this season, having already named him as their opening day starter.
Well, the bounce for him last year was that he lost a little bit of his control and command in the strike zone. His walks went up by about 20 batters on the entire season, and that always puts you in trouble. And, of course, the Indians had a down year overall as a ball club last year. I think that with the changes that they have made this year and the ownership's commitment to putting a lot of big leaguers on the field, you're going to see a lot better year out of Masterson.
Sin-Soo Choo, who of course came over from Cleveland in a trade during the offseason, has been bothered the last day or two with some back spasms. Well, all the things you hear about Choo as far as his work ethic back to his days with Cleveland, and has clearly carried that now just down the trail at the Reds complex, and the Reds are so excited to have Choo as their everyday center fielder batting lead up in this order.
Well, you're right. I mean, he's a grinder of a player. And what I really like about Choo is the fact that he hits his base hits, his singles to left field, and his home runs and his extra base hits to right field. He's a guy that really uses the entire field. And finally, that man, Dusty Baker, will be able to write pretty much the same lineup every day in and day out.
Shortstop took a funny hop on Diaz, and he's able to handle it and throw out Robinson. The Indians are in a very, very tough division. I mean, we know that the World Series, Detroit Tigers, American League pennant-winning Tigers, come out of the American League Central Division. The Chicago White Sox, by and large, year in and year out, solid teams. Many feel Kansas City is a team on the rise and may have a chance to contend, if not for the division title necessarily, a wild card spot in the American League.
Now, don't underestimate, though, the job that Terry Francona and a change in manager can do to the whole attitude of a ball club. I think that was the first thing that the Indians needed to address, which is, let's get rid of this recent legacy of losing. Let's get back to the years when the Indians were flying high, filling the ballpark up, and really controlling the division. Now, it's one thing to try to say that, but you've got to start with leadership, and they did a great job by getting Terry Francona in there.
Well, what a job he did in Boston. 5 times took the Red Sox to the playoffs as Kozar races one in the left field. That'll be a one-out single for the Cincinnati shortstop. But, of course, Terry Francona, no matter what happens, he will forever be known as a man who led the Red Sox to a World Series title. 2-0.
Ball finds the middle of the strike zone. Now, Zach Kozar today, with the absence of Brandon Phillips, he'll be back shortly from the World Baseball Classic. But batting in the number 2 spot, he'll be pretty much down the number 7 hole pretty much all year long. It should take a little bit of the pressure off of the young shortstop.
Well, now Joey Votto, he too is part of the Baseball Classic. And well, he came back, was in the lineup yesterday, Chris. He had 3 hits. He had 3 runs batted in. He hit a home run, and here he is his first time up today and just shoots one into left field.
Well, that's classic Joey Votto right there. The guy, it sometimes seems to me that he wills the pitcher to give him a pitch that he can hit. And kind of the way that Tony Gwynn used to hit the same way. But if you watch him day in and day out here at the complex where the ball players come, he comes early. I don't think there's a guy that I've seen ever wear a Reds uniform that would outwork Joey Votto.
2 on and 1 out, bottom of the first inning. And now Xavier Paul. Boy, what a key acquisition this young man turned into last year. Been let go a number of times by different organizations. That was the case when the Reds scooped him up. Chris, I remember you and I being in the booth when they announced that they had brought him in to go down to Louisville, and we thought, is that going to be the help for the Reds bench? Well, it turned out you couldn't have done much better.
Yeah, you're right.
Than that help for the bench.
Sometimes, you get an extra player, infielder or outfielder, and it's not what he brings to the table as far as talent, but how he fits on your ball club. And the fact that Xavier Paul grinds it out, he can run a little bit, he plays good defense in all the different outfield positions, and he's left-handed, really fit the Reds very well.
Paul's still young. He's only 28. Originally a 4th-round pick by the Dodgers. Came up through their organizations, had a couple of bad injuries that set back him being on track to reach the major league club, which he eventually did in 09 for all of 11 games. 44 games in 2010, 7 games in 11. And then was claimed off waivers by the Pirates. But he came on board with the Reds, and man, did he have some big hits for this ball club.
It's kind of interesting, really, for Xavier Paul, because he was in AAA with the Washington Nationals last year, and it became obvious to him that he was not going to be called up by the Nationals, so he had a clause in his contract that would grant him his minor league free agency. He did. He signed with the Reds. Next thing you know, he's a very important piece of the puzzle.
2 on and 1 out, bottom of the first inning. And Paul puts a charge into one straightaway center field. Bourne looks up. And it is gone. That is a home run by Xavier Paul.
Justin Masterson fell behind in the count, 2 balls and no strikes, and then he fooled Paul on a changeup. But it's left-handers that have been the tough outs for Masterson. Boy, he just got that ball up, and Xavier Paul rode it out of here the way big man hit it.
Yeah, that batter's eye obviously out there in straightaway center field. Some of the ballparks you have to clear the batter's eye to get a home run, but see the yellow stripe out there, and it more than cleared that.
Not a big guy. I mean, as far as height, Xavier Paul goes about 5'10", but he goes over 200 pounds and puts a charge in that one.
So now Jay Bruce. Jay, like a lot of the Reds offensively, a slow start to the Cactus League spring training season. He's hit a couple of home runs. But Bruce, again, much like Latos, 25 years young. The numbers continue to get better and better and better every year. You see 99 RBIs, and you have the feeling, Chris, that he will eclipse, should he stay healthy, of course, 100 for the first time this year.
Well, the interesting thing for me about Jay Bruce, when you start really boiling down the numbers, inside the numbers, you find out that his walk rate and his strikeout rate are pretty much the same from the first year to last year. But the difference is, I think, is his batting average. And I think that you'll eventually see his batting average get up a little bit bigger. His numbers for power will, I think, continue to grow as well. And depending on who bats behind him in the lineup, he may get more and better pitches to hit.
This is a guy who figures to bat behind him in the lineup. If you have Votto as a lefty batting third, Ryan Ludwig is a righty batting fourth, Bruce hitting fifth, then it would be Frazier. Runner goes and a high fly ball drifting goodbye. Home run, Todd Frazier. And it is 5-0 Reds after just 6 batters have come to the plate.
Masterson struggling with his command a little bit. You know, after you walk the batter like he did with Jay Bruce, he comes in there with a first pitch strike. Todd Frazier guessing first pitch fastball. There it is. Boy, right down Broadway.
So a quick visit out to the mound for Justin Masterson. This is a time you hear a lot of pitchers, and I guess Roy Halladay has gotten the most ink recently, but it happens every single year where pitchers go through, Chris, that tired arm period. At this point, maybe midway through the spring, although this year's spring training a lot longer than most other years due to the WBC. What does that mean, tired arm?
You know, I would love to have a doctor describe that to me in actual medical terms, because I really don't know. I can tell you from a pitching standpoint is that you just really don't have any snap in your pitches. You feel good physically. You get out there, you rear back or throw the ball, instead of having a little bit of movement or some sink, the ball comes in there straight, or you begin to leave the pitches up just a couple of inches, and that's what looks like happening to Justin Masterson.
But it is real.
It is real, and I'm not sure. It's real if you ask pitchers or managers. I don't know if there's ever been a medical explanation for it. I thought you might be the guy that would.
Now, why in the world would you even throw that out there? Because you know I have no chance. Well, there are 2 things that go together generally with medicine, and one of them has to do with math. And as has been well documented in our telecast for a long, long time, a little short in that category.
We're not going to do any of that in public.
No, we're not. Well, here's Jason Dunn. Originally a third-round pick out of the University of Arizona by Philadelphia. Came over in the Cliff Lee deal to the Indians. That was in 2009. And in 2010, he did a nice job, got regular playing time for them over the back half of the year. In 2011 was even better, although an injury-shortened season. But last year, things did not go his way. He became available, and the Reds are happy to have him. He's gone on strikes, 2 away in the inning. You know, Rick Manning, who will be with us during the telecast today on Sports Time Ohio, as will his running mate Matt Underwood. Rick, give us a little scouting report, if you would, on what Reds fans can expect or to look for from Jason Donald.
Well, Jason Donald is a very high-intensity player. He is a shortstop, his natural position. He plays the game with a lot of intensity, and so it's like 110% every time he is on the field.
Popped up to the shortstop, and we'll check back in with Rick Manning throughout the entire afternoon. In fact, he'll be in the booth shortly. Reds flexing their muscles in the first. Paul Frazier played long ball.
There's something about
second inning down in the Indians dugout, joined now by Vinny Pastano, and Vinny just got back from the World Baseball Classic. Other than results, how was the experience?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was something that that I was looking very much to, and the experience is definitely something, you know, hopefully not once in a lifetime. Hopefully in 4 years we'll be worthy enough to don the Stars and Stripes again, but it was something that I was very proud to be part of.
Yeah, it's a great experience. Now, you're back here, have an opportunity. You want to get back on the mound and pitch again. When will you do that?
Tomorrow. Definitely want to get back on the bump and get that last game out of my system. You know, it's a little different. It's not just a game in the middle of the season. It was a one-and-done type situation. I got to wait 4 more years to kind of redeem myself. But I just want to get the monkey off my back and get back out there as soon as I can.
Well, how many times in the month of March do you go out there with the intensity level that Dominican game put on you, especially down in Miami? And how loud was it down there?
It was definitely loud. I mean, we were out crowded every game we were at. It seemed like there were more fans going for other people than us, but it was a hostile environment. I've never played winter ball, so hearing horns and bells and whistles and things like that was definitely a different experience.
Well, all right, let's look to this year now. Good word. I heard Chris Perez is probably going to be ready for opening day and go, and the bullpen should be back to full strength, we hope, in about 2 weeks.
Definitely. And then the other guys we have still battling for jobs. That's actually a really nice play right there. The guys we have still battling for jobs. We're only going to make our pen tougher and stronger. So definitely looking forward to getting this going and start playing some meaningful games.
Give us a little insight into how the clubhouse is going. It's a little different than it was last year.
Yeah, it's great. It's actually a lot of fun. The guys joking around, always keeping it light, always keeping it loose. Guys aren't putting too much pressure. learning those types of things on themselves early. So it's something I'm happy to get back to right away.
Well, I saw the video made last week. It looked like that was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wasn't able to be a part of that. We'd already taken off with Team USA. I was pretty upset those guys didn't wait around for me.
Pretty nice play right there by Jay Bruce.
Nice job putting that ball up. But no, that was definitely. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I think Tito was definitely the star of that video, though.
All right, well, listen, thanks for talking to us, guys. Back up to you.
Rick, thank you. And you know what, Vinny? Thank you for playing for the United States in the World Baseball Classic. Obviously, Chris, there are a lot of guys that would have the opportunity to pitch for whatever homeland they're from. And for those of us here in the United States of America, we're proud and honored that you decided to put on the uniform of the Stars and Stripes. Chris McGinnis getting a start at first base. A 1-out single by Carson, the first base runner against Matt Latos. Reds with a 5-run bottom of the first inning. And that's their lead here in the second.
Anything more appropriate than having a McGinnis in the game on St. Patty's Day?
You've always got your mind in the right place.
Other than having a few in the booth?
Well, last time I checked, our bosses are here. That would probably not be a good idea for you to continue that streak.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bright sunshine, temperatures in the mid-80s, not a cloud in the sky. That one fouled straight back. Latos may have gotten away with one right there. Of course, the Reds coming here 3 years ago, leaving Sarasota to come to Arizona. Goodyear, Arizona is it's a right far ways from downtown Phoenix, but all highway riding. You can be here in about 10 or 15 minutes if it's not a work week day. You can get down the road a little bit. Swing and a miss. Fooled badly there on the breaking ball, and that's all for McGinnis.
That's one thing that Matt Latos has said has been very good for him so far this spring is his slider. He's been working on his changeup, trying to get that to be a little bit, and that I think was a slider right there. Stays right on top of it. It resembles a curveball with the way that it goes down so quickly. But I'll tell you what, when he gets either one of his off-speed pitches over the plate consistently, because of his release point, how big he is, how close he is when he releases the ball to home plate, he can be a very tough challenge out there for any hitter.
So now Juan Diaz, a shortstop. Of course, Asdrubal Cabrera is the big hitter in this Indians lineup, and they should score some runs. I mean, you look around at this lineup, Brantley will be their regular left fielder. We know about Michael Bourne, and Drew Stubbs will initially play out in right field. Carlos Santana, an excellent hitter behind the plate. They brought in Nick Swisher, as that one is pulled foul, leaving the New York Yankees. And we know Swisher can swing the bat. Kipnis will be at second. Chisenhall down at third. But Cabrera, I mean, he is the stud in this Indians lineup.
Well, he finally has a little bit of supporting cast around him, though. I think that'll make him even more dangerous.
In the air, short left center. Hall able to corral it, and that will retire the side. Latos allows a hit. Reds back in the second, leading 5-0.
Well, true, if they make a decision, I mean, I would like to be a closer, but that's not in my hands. That's not in my hands. Well, yeah. At the beginning when I started closing, it was something I didn't know. But as I start throwing and I start getting into the late part of the game, when the game is, more excited and the game has some meaning, so I kind of like it. And yeah, the adrenaline goes up, and I like to be in that situation. I would like to be a closer, yeah, but there's some things that I can control. There's also other situations around this.
Those were the comments made by Aroldis Chapman following his start against the San Francisco Giants yesterday. A start that saw Chapman go 4 innings, allowed 2 hits, 1 run. He was a bit wild. He walked 3 batters, although it should be noted he walked the first 2 batters of the game and only walked 1 over 4 full innings thereafter. But, Chris, I think it is very safe to say that the entire Reds camp was turned upside down after those comments were made by Aroldis Chapman. I don't think there's any debate that there is some division, and always has been, inside the baseball operations department, that being the general manager, Walt Jocketty, and all of his lieutenants, if you will, drifting down the ladder to Dusty Baker, pitching coach Brian Price, and others who have input. Then all of a sudden you ask the question, what now?
Well, it's not unusual, first of all, Tommy, to have a general manager and a field manager look at things differently.
Sure.
I mean, the general manager's job by definition is to find the 25 guys to fill the roster, make trades, make sure the organization is replenished with players. The field manager's job is to get those 25 guys, get them out on the field, get them ready to play. But in this case right here, you have a general manager and a manager who don't really see eye to eye on this. There's no question now that Dusty Baker would prefer Chapman in the bullpen, and that right now Walt Jocketty wants to see how he's going to be. And I can see both sides of it, to be honest with you. I mean, the enticement of having Aroldis Chapman, Johnny Cueto, Matt Latos as your top 3 pitchers rolling into St. Louis or Milwaukee or any one of your division opponents and say, hey, here are 3 guys for this weekend series. That's a pretty enticing rotation to have. On the other hand, with the success that Aroldis Chapman had last year and how he was so dominant, that you wonder why fix something that's broken. So I think until they figure out which way they're going to go, there's going to be people talking and speculating.
Well, no final decision has been made yet. We visited with Dusty Baker in his office earlier this morning down at the Reds complex, and there will be a meeting sooner rather than later as to what the next step in this entire saga will be. The bottom line is Aroldis Chapman is pitching for the Cincinnati Reds.
Well, that's the one big bottom line. I think the other good thing is the fact that in spring training, by getting him to use as a starter, you're encouraging him to use his off-speed pitches, his slider, and his changeup, much more than if you were grooming him only as a reliever. So at the very worst, you're getting him to learn his other pitches and stretching him out a little bit, much the way the Reds did last year. Remember, when Chapman came to camp last season, he was going to be a starter until there was an injury and forced him to go into the bullpen. So we'll see where it goes from here, but I think it's a nice experiment so far because it's getting him to learn a little bit more about himself.
Tapper down to third, and reaching safely is Kozart. So that will give Votto a chance to bat for the second time in as many innings.
A little short hop right there for the third baseman, Cord Phelps, who came in, and I think he let the ball play him a little bit. He got one of those situations where he wasn't sure whether to charge the ball right from the very beginning or maybe back up. But with the speed that Zach Kozart has, charging is always a better idea. Just took a little bad hop and went off the heel of his glove.
Votto singled into left field his first time up. Scored one of the 5 Reds runs against Justin Masterson in the opening inning, including a pair of home runs. Xavier Paul, a 3-run homer, and Todd Frazier, a 2-run shot. Now Matt Underwood and Rick Manning will be taking over the broadcast of the game in the top of the 3rd inning. Chris, you and I will spend the next number of innings down in the dugout.
Looking forward to that.
Now, do me a favor, okay? I mean, you've got a couple of innings in the dugout. I have a couple of innings in the dugout. We're both going to be in the Reds dugout.
Okay.
Leave me at least with somebody to talk to. Because you're going down there first, and then I'm following you. You'll be down there in the 3rd and the 4th. I'll be down there in the 5th and the 6th. So just do me a favor and leave me someone. If my Spanish were better, I would say, you could leave me, just about anybody you want. But my Spanish is not very good.
All right, is there a guy
So if there
down
would be
there?
an English-speaking player, that would help too.
All right. Is there one player down there that you really want to talk to?
Not particularly. I'll let you're the boss down there.
I think they probably say the same about you.
I don't think there's any debate about that. One hand on the count on Joey Votto. Rolled over to the right side, and Hernandez will throw out Votto. So a good bounce back inning for Justin Masterson. Matt Underwood, Rick Manning coming aboard next.
Welcome back here to Goodyear, Arizona, where the Cincinnati Reds have a 5-0 lead over the Cleveland Indians. Matt Underwood and Rick Manning with you now here during our Indians-Reds telecast this afternoon. Matt Latos with 2 scoreless innings under his belt. Todd Frazier, a big blast for the Reds as they strike for 5 in the first frame. And as we go here to the top half of the 3rd inning, we'll see Luis Hernandez leading off for the Indians. Yeah, Latos with a first pitch strike. The Indians, of course, had a night game here in Goodyear against the San Francisco Giants last night, winning in dramatic fashion.
11,000 people in attendance to that ball game.
We're jammed into every corner and crevice of this ballpark. Watch the defending world champions take on the Indians, and the Tribe won it on a 2-run walk-off triple in the 9th. Pitch inside. 2 balls and a strike. And so with that, Rick, it's a night game, which is a rare thing in spring training, followed by a day game. So Terry Francona has a number of the reserves and some of the minor league guys called up for duty here today.
Well, actually, the players don't mind spring training because it's all day games, but they're ready for the year to start, because once the year starts, it's mostly night games. They can get into their routine. This is not the normal routine when you play day games most of the time, or 90% of the time.
Now the 2-2 from Matt Latos, and it's blooped toward left field, and that's in a gap for a base hit. So Luis Hernandez leads off with an opposite field single for the Tribe. And we'll see if they can get something going here in inning number 3.
Nice inside out swing here. Gets down around the trademark, but he flares it into left center field and gets the hit for the Indians. You know, this Reds starting pitching staff last year, Matt, 5 guys had over 30 starts.
Ryan Girolamo bangs it to first. It's kicked into foul ground, and everybody's safe. Joey Votto couldn't come up with it cleanly. It was a sharply hit ball, and Votto went with the short hop scoop attempt. He got leather on it, but he knocked the ball into foul ground, and by the time he could recover, Girolamo is aboard safely at first.
Yeah, that was an in-between hop. He was holding the base runner on, came off to get into the gap and has to charge that ball and just didn't field it cleanly. That was a tough hop for Votto, and it kicked away out of his glove enough that allowed him to reach first base, so that'll go as an error.
And now the Indians threatening with 2 on and nobody out here in the top half of the 3rd. And Michael Bourne is the batter. Bourne enters the day hitting .242 in Cactus League action. He grounded out his first time up. Michael, of course, the surprise late off-season addition to this Indians lineup and the outfield, and figures to be a dynamic force at the top of the Tribe lineup this year. But here's a routine bouncer to second. They get one, and the relay is in time for a double play. Luis Hernandez moves to third, but Matt Latos, pitcher's best friend, the old 2-for-1 ball. And that gets him 1 pitch away from getting out of the jam now.
Looks like he took a little something off and got Bourne to roll over on that pitch. And you're right, the 1 pitch, 2 outs. You see the first hit of the inning by Hernandez. He went the other way, inside out. That would have been a good approach, but they turn it up the middle.
Ditch in the dirt and a good stop by Devin Mesoraco. And you know, you look at Matt Latos, the Cincinnati starter, still a young guy. I mean, he's over 100 career starts before his 25th birthday. And nice to have a guy who, you know, Rick, can be a workhorse, and yet you're not counting on him to be necessarily your #1 starter.
Well, he fits in nicely in the #2 hole.
Drew Stubbs against his former team in the hole, and he legs out an infield RBI single, and the Indians get on the board as Luis Hernandez scores from third. And that's the dimension of the game that Drew Stubbs brings, in that if he hits a ball and it's not right at an infielder, he's got a chance to reach every time.
You know, and that's a rarity from the right side of the box, and the Cincinnati Reds know it very well. He's going to get done. You can see Kozar did everything in his power to get that ball, get rid of it in a hurry. Just a tough play, and Stubbs beats it out, gets the RBI, gets the Indians on the board.
Drew Stubbs coming from Cincinnati to Cleveland as part of that 3-team swap, which brought Shin-Soo Choo from Cleveland to Cincinnati. And the Indians, of course, ending up with Trevor Bauer, which was the real key to that deal as far as the Indians are concerned. Young pitcher.
You go back and you talk about Stubbs. This guy, if he can do that more often, put the ball in play instead of swinging and missing like he did a lot with the Reds, that's something very special. If he hits it on the ground, he can run. Give him many more opportunities.
Well, you look at Drew Stubbs, and you know they expected a lot from him, and boy, in 2010, big breakout.
You look at the last 2 columns, the strikeouts and the stolen base. This guy's going to steal 30 if he gets on, but the batting average has gone down. This guy is a good athlete. It's just a matter of getting the ball in play, and if you can get him on base a few more times, maybe, you know, instead of striking out walks, he could be something very special.
Well, his athletic ability, he's a big, strong guy, and he can hit the ball a long way, so he's got tremendous power. He's not one of those short, slap, speedy hitters. And Terry Francona said, look, we're not trying to change him. We don't want him to become a slap hitter. We want to take advantage of that power and that swing. And he said, you're going to have to live with the fact that at times there will be stretches where he swings and misses.
He should be running right now with 2 outs, you know, try and get himself in scoring position. They know this.
Michael Brantley, meanwhile, on a 3-1 count.
You know, and he may have a little less pressure on him down in the bottom part of that lineup. He should be hitting 9th this year for the Indians, and You know, at times they put him in the leadoff spot because of his speed and because he can steal a base. And an excellent outfielder can run him down. He will be playing right field as opposed to center now.
There goes Stubbs, and Brantley pops it to center field. Late break on the ball in center, and a nice running catch to end the inning. Robinson came flying in to end the inning. So the Tribe gets on the board. Cincinnati on top 5-1, middle of the third.
For all the excitement at Progressive Field with a 2013 season ticket package. Season tickets give you access to the best seats at the lowest prices. And with a full season package, you're guaranteed to be there for opening day, April 8th against the Yankees. You can log on to Indians.com for more information.
And we go now to the bottom half of the third inning. Justin Masterson misses outside, ball one. Masterson allowed all 5 runs to the Reds in the first inning.
Had control problems, control issues.
And Xavier Paul launched a home run to straightaway center field to get Cincinnati on the board. That 3-run shot. Fastball that just looked elevated up in the strike zone.
The one problem, too, with Justin sometimes is if he can't control that fastball in the first inning, he doesn't go to a lot of off-speed pitches or the slider to try and show the hitters he can prove he can throw a breaking pitch or an off-speed pitch for a strike. So after a walk, they were ready for a first pitch fastball. And when you don't locate it, they do a lot of damage.
Swing and a miss there. It's 2-2. Of Justin Masterson, Terry Francona, his observation was that last year he felt Masterson got caught up too much in velocity, and he's going to realize this year that he's got plenty to be very good.
Well, I agree with Terry. I always felt that Masterson is at his best when he's 89 to 92. When he starts getting to 96 early in a ball game, that ball straightens out. It doesn't have the movement. This is one right-hander that has a tough time throwing it straight, and that's what you key on. Movement, and especially if he can get the sink downward movement.
Now the payoff pitch. And it's fouled back out of play by Paul. Xavier Paul got the call up in July for Cincinnati. And in just 55 games, he hit .314. Really became a go-to guy off the bench for Dusty Baker.
I'll tell you what, he juiced that ball in the first inning, man. He hit it a long way.
And a good at bat here for Paul as he draws the walk. And now Jay Bruce coming up for Cincinnati as the Reds get their leadoff man aboard.
You know, we had an opportunity to talk to Brooke Jacoby, the Reds hitting coach, who Indians fans know very well. And we were talking about Chu, and he really loves the style of Shin-Soo Choo. He thinks he's a really good hitter and has a lot of tendencies where he'd be able to swing the bat a lot like Joey Votto, who uses the whole field. and has power to left center field, and that's a good hitter's ballpark down in Cincinnati.
Well, they're counting on Chu not only to be their leadoff man, but also to patrol center field. And he hasn't played a lot of center field, very, very sparingly in the major leagues, but they feel like because of the smaller dimensions in Cincinnati, he'll be able to do that without trouble.
It's just a matter, playing center field is actually easier than playing left or right because you get the angle off the bat. It's sitting right in front of you. It's like watching it at home on television. It's a matter of running good angles, proper angles to cut it off, and he certainly has enough speed to do that.
1-1 pitch, a swing and a miss. Tell you where Chu's going to benefit Cincinnati. Last year, the Reds scored the second fewest runs from the leadoff spot. They scored 83 runs. They were tied with the Astros and the Pirates. This is a club that won over 95 games last year.
Yeah.
And scored only 80 runs out of their leadoff spot. Bruce swing and a miss, and Justin Masterson has a strikeout for out number 1. And so you take a guy like Chu who has a .373 on base percentage, and you know the struggles of Drew Stubbs last year, and really everybody that they tried in that leadoff spot. They figure they'll get more people on base in front of guys like Joey Votto, Jay Bruce. I mean, think about this. Joey Votto, more than half of his at-bats last year came with the bases empty.
Yeah.
Now, that's a guy that has MVP caliber bat. And if you're starting to get him up to the plate more often with people on base, he's going to do a lot more damage.
When you have a middle of the lineup like the Reds have, it is key to keep the table setters off the board. But the funny thing of it was, Chu was a number 3 hitter for the Indians early, and then you remember they switched Maniac to put him in the leadoff spot. It got Shin-Soo Chu going. He became more aggressive. He became a little different hitter. And I think a lot of his problems last year were early in the year for Chu when he was facing left-handers. Remember, they kept pounding him inside. He was hit a number of times, and he had some problems. Dusty's going to love him in that leadoff spot. There's no doubt about it.
Meanwhile, Terry Francona inherits an Indians club that has made so many off-season changes that some of the holdovers felt like when they came to spring training, they felt like they had been traded to a new club because there were so many new faces in the clubhouse and in the Indians organization. But it's been a delightful spring. It's a great energy and a tremendous atmosphere in that Indians clubhouse, and it all starts with Terry Francona. But, you look at what he's got to deal with now with Michael Bourne settling right in at the top of your lineup, proven leadoff man with speed and stolen base ability.
It's still going to take this Indians team, and I think they're one team that benefits from this long spring training with all the new faces, where you develop a little chemistry, a little camaraderie, and the things that have to happen for you to become a good club before you break camp, because it's going to take these guys a while to gel and get some chemistry together, which means a lot to a ball club.
Frazier pops it high in the air, and here's Bourne settling under it.
Boy, the high sky and the Arizona sun. You can see their glasses just glaring out there.
Really no such thing as a routine pop-up, is there?
No, not until you see it go in the glove and it's in there and they squeeze it tightly.
Bourne did just that, and there are 2 down now for Jason Donald. We had a chance to catch up with Jason Donald before today's game. Obviously, JD came to the Indians organization from the Philadelphia Phillies outfit as part of the Cliff Lee deal, and then going to Cincinnati along with Chu this past offseason. He's excited about an opportunity to make this Reds club as a utility man. He's been playing third, short, second, so he's moving around, and he, get some time maybe in the outfield if the need arises in that regard.
Tom and Chris asked me when I was down in the dugout about Jason Donald, what kind of player Reds fans can expect him to be. This kid, he's a great kid. You love him. He's got a great personality. He hustles. He goes all about it. It's a matter of him trying to relax and let the game come to him instead of going out and trying to take it. And the tough thing for Jason Donald when he was with the Indians, he was becoming a utility player when he's never played the game every day before, at the big league level. And it's not an easy thing to do for any player.
2-0 pitch. Hard hit ground ball up the middle. And Diaz looked at second, but then takes the long throw to first to retire Jason Donald, and the inning is over. So clean frame, 2 in a row for Justin Masterson, but it's the Cincinnati Reds who lead it 5-1 through.
Now the Reds in control of this ball game, 5-1 so far. I'm in the Reds dugout along with Bronson Arroyo. Bronson, how's spring going so far for you?
Great for me. You know, I think probably been pretty indicative of the way the rest of spring has gone for most guys. Everybody's relatively healthy and seem to be on track to start a good season.
You got to be having one of the quieter springs of anybody down here. All the talk, of course, about Aroldis Chapman, whether he goes to the bullpen or whether he goes to starting rotation. You've got the other guys who are still trying to get in. No one really talks about Bronson.
Yeah, you know, I've been around the game long enough now that I'm kind of flying under the radar and, you know, just get my work in. And there's larger stories here than myself in camp that are worth talking about. You know, I think there's some guys on this team like myself that have been here long enough. We're cemented in our roles, and there's other things to really focus on right now. But as long as nobody's talking about me, that means that I'm probably healthy and throwing the ball decent, so that's a good thing.
You came out earlier this winter when it became known that they were going to try Aroldis Chapman in the starting rotation. Came out publicly and said you weren't so sure it was a good idea to do that. From a starting pitcher's perspective, what would he have to do to become a good starter, and why is it so tough?
Well, the things that he would have to do that he hasn't had to do from the ninth inning is throwing, you know, 2 more pitches in the strike zone, you know, probably a changeup or a split finger and a slider, some sort of breaking ball. You've got to be able to weather the storm when you throw 35, 36 pitches possibly in the first or second inning and go out there and still make it through the 6th inning and not burn the bullpen up, you know, every 5th day. And you know, there's just, you know, learning the bunt signs, fielding more bunts, running the bases, having to hit. There's just a lot of things that are involved with being a starting pitcher that you don't have to deal with in the 9th inning.
And do you think overall it's going to work or not?
I don't know. You know, I haven't seen him throw here yet. Every time him and Leak have pitched on the same day, it's been on the road, and I haven't got an opportunity to see those guys fired up yet. I know both have been throwing the ball decent, but, you know, I think it's going to come down to the organization and what they think is best for this ball club really this year because, you know, we have a team built here to really give us a good chance to push towards the World Series. And if there is a future for him in the rotation, it might not be just this year, but, you know, it could be in years to come, so you never really know.
Does ball club have any pressure on it this year to maybe go a little bit deeper than they did last couple of years?
Yeah, I haven't felt like we've had a lot of pressure on this ball club until this point, really. This is the first spring that I've said publicly that this ball club should win this division and we should have a chance to push towards the World Series. And that hasn't been easy to say in this division when the Cardinals have been so good over the years, but we've slowly, with Walt Jocketty, gotten the players in place that we've wanted to. We've gotten everybody's feet wet 3 or 4 years in the league, and we are primed to do, you know, the best we can. And if we can't get it done with this ball club, then I don't know if we ever will.
All right, Bronson, thanks a lot. Matt and Rick, up to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Chris. And if anybody knows, you know, what it takes to build and win a championship, it's Bronson Arroyo, who did just that with Terry Francona while the two of them were together in Boston. You know, and that was a team that kind of, I don't want to say came on out of nowhere, but I don't know that when the season began, people were eyeing the Red Sox of 04 as a, hey, this is a, you know, world championship type ball club.
Well, that's why you have to play the 162 game schedule. You know, people can think somebody's going to win the division. And, hey, that's why you play it. It's fun to watch these guys. And Arroyo.
Matt Carson with a line drive base hit in the left field. Cord Phelps will stop at third. And the Indians have him at the corners with nobody out. Here against Matt Latos in the top half of the 4th inning.
Carson, a guy trying to find a spot here. Of course, he was with the Twins last year, and he's having a good spring.
Well, he's 31 years old, Rick, and a guy like Matt Carson who, you know, he's never been that, okay, kid, here's your job. He's had to fight and scratch and claw, and he's willing to, you know, beat the bushes and stay in the minor leagues to maybe get that opportunity. And you have to tip your cap to a guy like that who's willing to continue to come out here and grind, as they say in the baseball vernacular.
Most guys have to in this.
Chris McGinnis shows some pop deep to center field. Robinson won't get it. It hits the base of the wall. Scoring is Cord Phelps. Stopping at third is Matt Carson. It's an RBI double for Chris McGinnis, and the Indians with 3 straight here in the 4th inning. Put another digit on the board. It's a 5-2 Cincinnati lead.
An interesting guy, a Rule 5 pick from the Texas Rangers, who has a lot of power. And you can witness it right here. A good left-hander, typical low ball hitter, drives the ball to straightaway center. Look at him right in the middle of the sun. Let it hit the wall and come back. He drives it, short hops the wall. So the Indians now get another one on the board, make it 5-2, second and third, and nobody out.
Chris McGinnis, as you mentioned, a Rule 5 pick of the Texas Rangers organization. And for fans who aren't familiar with that, he either has to make the Indians club and then stay on the 25-man roster the whole year, or they have to offer him back.
Well, and they could work a deal out, which I think the Indians are hoping to do, because in reality, I don't think he's going to make this roster.
It wouldn't appear there's room for him.
No, there is no room. He's a first baseman. You got Swisher over there, and you got Reynolds that can play first. So that's why they're playing him in the outfield. They're making his versatility a little bit better. And Terry says this kid can go out there. He hasn't done anything wrong in the outfield, but they may have to work a deal out with Texas if Texas doesn't want him back, and that's the case.
Yeah.
You know, where he's not going to make this team.
Here's Juan Diaz. And hits it foul, out of play.
He's got very good power. I've watched him take batting practice. He can hit it as far as a lot of these guys. So
Terry Francona said that the only problem with Chris McGinnis this spring was that, and this is not unique, but he was trying to go 1 for 2 every time he came to the plate. He was trying to impress. He wanted to make the club. He wanted to do all those things. And he said, I just finally had to walk down to him in the dugout one day and say, just relax, take it easy.
Well,
it's easier said than done.
Well, it's normal when you're a kid moving to a new organization. You want to impress everybody there. You want to open up some eyes, and he wants to stay on this ball club at the big league level. So I can understand that very easily as a player's perspective.
Meanwhile, Juan Diaz, who we got a look at a year ago with the Indians, still a relatively young player. How about George Foster? Still has the good hands.
Yes, he's known for that bat, man. He could hit him a long way. I see he's sitting down there with Lou signing autographs, I see.
If I remember right, Rick, didn't he, and this might have been after his Cincinnati days, might have been when he went to New York. Didn't he hit 50 when 50 was still?
It was back in 1977, I believe.
So he was still in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was the first one to hit 50 in a long time. He was strong and could hit it a long way.
Diaz down on the count with runners at second and third and nobody out. And a little bouncer towards
That'll
first.
get it done.
The run will score. Latos tagging the bag to retire Diaz, who gets an RBI. And the Indians scratch out another run. It's 5-3.
That right there is what you call a productive out. I mean, even though he tops it, he rolls it to first base. The run can score from third. The runner moves from second to third, and there's one out. Now you have an opportunity to get another run in and cut into that lead and make it a 5-4 game with just putting the ball in play.
McGinnis is now at third, and Luis Hernandez is the batter, hitting 8th here this afternoon.
Yeah, the key to spring training is getting your starters ready to go 100 pitches before you leave camp.
Swung on and missed to 1-1 the count.
You know, and as many pitches as you bring into camp, that's why the B games are played. And, you know, like today, I think Dice K's thrown over on the other field, or is it
Kazmir?
It's Scott Kazmir. He's thrown on the other field. Mickey Callaway's over there watching him, and you know, he's running for the number 5 spot in the rotation.
Probably the front runner.
Yeah, and they get their innings in, whether it's at this level or it's down in a AAA game or whatever, because the minor leaguers are in camp. And it doesn't matter as long as they get their work in. But spring training is definitely built around the pitchers.
Meanwhile, Matt Latos breezed through the first 2, but gave up a run on the third, and he's coughed up a couple here in the fourth. Runner at third, still only 1 out. 2-1 pitch to Hernandez. And that's banged foul to the right side. You know, this is a Cincinnati ball club that I'm sure Reds fans, by the time October had finally ended last year, they were wondering how in the world wasn't it us that was in the World Championship hoisting the trophy. They had the Giants down 2-0 in the first round. And the next thing you know, it's San Francisco who's hoisting the World Series trophy.
That's remarkable. Yeah, they ended up getting a key run in Cincinnati in Game 3. Back at home, they scored early and in the first inning, and then a little ball that was thrown in the dirt. And Buster Posey, if you remember, Brandon Phillips tried to go from first to third, hustling all the way. They threw him out at third base, and everything went downhill from that point on for Cincinnati. But like I said, they had a starter. Their starting staff did not miss a start. And then the very first hitter that Johnny Cueto faces in the playoffs, he went down and they lost him, their #1 starter. Good curveball.
Very well done by Latos as he rings up Luis Hernandez for out number 2, and that runner stays at third.
Well, he was going to his breaking ball there because you got that run at third base, less than 2 outs, so he goes to his bread and butter and gets him called third.
Here is Brian Girolamo, 27-year-old catcher. Takes a strike. Last year in the Blue Jays organization. Back in 2011. He was playing in the AAA at Las Vegas and having a pretty good year. And he got a call up. I think he was hitting whatever. He's having a good year. He gets the call up, but at the time he got called up, the day he got called up, he had done something to his wrist during the game, and he knew something was wrong with it. They checked him out, said it was just a wrist strain. They called him up anyway, and it was still really bothering him after they called him up. And then they looked at it again and found out it was a sprain, and he ended up 30 days in the big leagues that year. Didn't get into a game, but he got his big league time. But just an unfortunate, you only want to get to the big leagues if you're a young player. And for this young man, the unfortunate thing, he gets there and he can't play.
Well, timing is the key to life, and that was bad timing for him.
But for a guy like Brian Girolamo, who's 27 years old, another opportunity to come to big league camp, try and open some eyes, and look for an opportunity somewhere. He's got a chance here to pick up a run for the Indians. And if he can drive home Chris McGinnis, who's at third with 2 down. Matt Latos with a 1-2 pitch.
Breaking ball. Yes.
And Girolamo ropes it foul.
He went to the well once too many, but you can see on that first pitch, he realized he left it upstairs. He didn't make a good pitch, and he's lucky he got away with it.
Rick, we've always heard thin air, humidity in Arizona. Breaking balls don't have quite the sharp break. Did you notice that as a hitter in spring training? Did you get more hangers than you do during the regular season?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. You look for the fastball. You search the fastball. You don't let them get to the breaking ball. If you do, you hope they don't throw it for strikes. But, that's being said, the fields are a little harder. The ball carries a little bit more out here. The ERAs will be much more inflated, let's say, than the Grapefruit League down in Florida when you look at the total picture here. But like you say, you get your arm in shape.
2-2. Allman with a bouncing ball to second, and Jason Donald will throw him out. The Indians strike for a pair. Will go to the bottom of the 4th inning here in Goodyear at Cincinnati 5, Cleveland 3.
Tickets for the 2013 season are now on sale. You can buy early and save on seats for replica jersey giveaways throughout the season. It'll be a Jason Kipnis presented by KeyBank, Michael Brantley, presented by Sugardale and a Nick Swisher and Michael Bourne. So stay tuned to that. You can log on to Indians.com promotions for the full promotional schedule.
Bottom of the fourth inning, Matt Underwood, Rick Manning with you. Chris Welsh and Tom Brenneman of the Cincinnati Reds broadcast team also with us here today.
They're saving Tom a couple interviews in that Reds dugout now.
I say Chris has been awfully quiet down there.
He's hiding it. Tom's got him taped down at the end of the dugout in the camera bay. He can't get up.
Swung on and missed. Devin Mesoraco, the Reds catcher. They've got a pretty good duo. This is certainly the youngster with great promise and potential, but they also have Ryan Hannigan, who is very good behind the plate, running the game, as they say.
Well, that's the primary reason you're behind the dish, to handle the pitching staff.
Nice slider by Justin Masterson to take care of Mesoraco, and that's out number one. Take another look.
Good location, down and away, out of the strike zone. That's where you want to throw your slider, and Masterson at times will not throw a lot of them throughout the course of a ball game.
Good fastball at the knees to Matt Latos.
Now, you see, that's funny. A lot of times, even though the Reds are at home and hosting this ball game, their pitcher hits because they have to get ready for the season.
Absolutely.
Where the Indians, they let go ahead and use a DH. But I think it was Arizona, and was it Cincinnati that had issues with the DH? Where Kirk Gibson wouldn't let the Reds use a DH, to get some guys some at-bats. And you're thinking, why? I mean, this is spring training. What are you doing? Just because you're in a National League park? No, we're playing by National League rules. Well, you know what? If the guy, they want a DH, who cares?
That's more of a professional courtesy as a manager, is that you need to help your guy get some at-bats.
You would think. And they were trying to get Shin-Soo Choo the at-bats in that ball game, but they wouldn't let him. They make the pitcher hit. But here, I mean, the Reds, they're getting, here's Latos hitting, and the Indians are using a DH. Why not?
Exactly. Now, there might be a case where Dusty Baker says, hey, we're coming down. We've got to make a decision on a couple of guys, and you want to use a DH. You understand that completely, too.
I would.
Latos a swing and a miss, and Masterson with another punch out. And there are two down. You're in the bottom half of the fourth inning. That'll take us back to the top of the order for Cincinnati. And it's Derek Robinson. Good news for Cleveland Indians fans. Of course, you may be familiar with the fact that Chris Perez suffered a setback earlier this spring, and the Indians being very cautious because, as Terry Francona said, look, we have to approach this with the understanding that we need Chris Perez for the whole season.
Right.
If he's ready for opening day, great. But we're not going to run him out there if he's not ready just because it's opening day. We need him for the whole season. So far, so good. He threw off the mound, 15 pitches in a little bullpen session. And Terry said, so far, so good, but we're not ready to proclaim him on schedule necessarily to pitch on opening day.
But it's much better than what it was last year. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He's ahead of schedule. Remember, he had the oblique last year when he warmed up on the very first time. This is a little what they called shoulder strain. When I was talking to Pistano down there in the dugout, he said, look, Chris was smart about it. He had a little tenderness in there, so he stepped aside, and he didn't go to the WBC. And right now he thinks everything's going to be fine. You just wait and see. There's still 2 weeks before opening day. I mean, come Tuesday.
A swing and a miss. And Masterson with a strong inning here in the bottom of the fourth. 3 straight zeros for the Tribe right-hander. But it's Cincinnati who leads it 5-3.
Ballpark for opening night, April 3rd. That's a Wednesday, and see Reds players walk the red carpet in the fan zone before the first night game of the season. It's a special celebration that includes a post-game fireworks show presented by TriHealth. For tickets to see your Reds take on the Angels Wednesday, April 3rd, call 513-381-REDS. Visit select Kroger locations or, of course, visit Reds.com today.
It's 5-3 Cincinnati as we go now to the 5th inning. And thanks for joining this presentation of Indians and Reds baseball today on both Fox Sports Ohio in the Cincinnati viewing area and, of course, Sports Time Ohio in the Cleveland viewing area. Matt Underwood, Chris Welsh with you in the booth now. Chris, of course, for Indians fans, is the commentator on Reds baseball alongside Tom Brenneman, former big league pitcher.
Now, Matt, we used to get to do this every year, maybe
right.
for an inning or two.
Right.
We'd come up to Cleveland or you come down to Cincinnati during the interleague games, and we'd share the booth. Good to see you again.
Well, it's good to see you as well. And, of course, this is the one thing that I love about interleague play. This matchup between the Indians and Reds, this was a matchup that was really made for interleague play when you've got two teams in state. You don't have this for a lot of other clubs.
You're right.
I think the fans really enjoy the Indians-Reds matchups year to year.
Yeah, the true rivalry term that they use with a lot of the interleague teams, it doesn't apply, but it certainly does right here. And for years, when it first started back in the days of the early 90s when the Indians were so dominant back in the Albert Bell days, and that team just every year would be a playoff contending team. The Reds are struggling a little bit back in those days. And then it's interesting to see how things begin to change. It just goes to show you that baseball is a cyclical sport, isn't it?
It sure is. Now the 2-2 from Matt Latos, who started off strong, has struggled the last couple of innings. Opposite field fly ball to left, and that's out number one as Xavier Paul puts it away and Bourne is retired.
I've only got one complaint for you, Matt Underwood, is that when I left the booth after the second inning, I left my scorecard here and I filled out everything through the first two innings. And I instructed Rick Manning to continue on, and all I see here are blank spaces.
This is kind of like in the old days, and I'm talking way before you and I. But remember when ball players used to leave their glove on the field and the other guy would pick it up?
Exactly, yeah.
That's kind of what you did. You left your glove on the field, and Rick just didn't. He stomped on it.
He decides he doesn't need a glove.
He doesn't need a glove. Here is Drew Stubbs, a man that Cincinnati Reds fans are very familiar with. As Latos fires. And 0-1 pitch couldn't hold up, nothing in two.
Drew's one of those guys, I think, and you hear this applied so many times that he needs a change of scenery.
Sure.
And I think that it might help him a lot to get to Cleveland because after a while, the expectations are so high. We heard so much about Drew Stubbs his whole young career in the minor leagues that you expected him to come on the scenes and become, an all-star every year, and anything less than that. And he's a very inward-thinking guy, and he thinks a lot about his trade. He cares very much about it. And I think he got to the point where he just tried to do too much.
Chris, maybe you've thought about this, maybe you haven't, but it seems to me that as long as I've been around the game, baseball, more than any other sport, more than hockey, basketball, or football, draws comparisons of players from generations past. And sometimes those expectations are an incredible burden. You see a young man, and the next thing you know, a reporter may ask a general manager, maybe he offers opinion, but sometimes when he does it, it's, he reminds me of whoever.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the label is there, and now a guy's got something to live up to. Whether it's real or imagined isn't the point. The fact is it's put out there, and some guys can't deal with that.
Well, sometimes it can be more of an anchor than it can be incentive, and I think you're exactly right about that. A lot of times it determines how the guy approaches it mentally. And if you really care about how you do and then you don't do well, you kind of get into you're circling the drain kind of mode, and it's hard to stop yourself and get out of it. I think Terry Francona is a great manager for Drew Stubbs, and I hope to see Stubbsy do great this year, because I'll tell you what, you will not find a nicer young man in a uniform.
Michael Brantley at the plate now. His father was a major league player, so he understands what the game is all about and the expectations that come with being at this level. And I tell you what, Chris, he was off to a torrid start this spring, roping double after double after double, and then he slid into a base got spiked and required more than a dozen stitches, so that knocked him out of action for a while. But good to see Brantley back in action. The Indians are out here in the top half of the fifth. It's still Cincinnati 5 and Cleveland 3.
Subscribe to MLB.TV Premium today and watch over 150 select spring training games live. Plus, every regular season game live or on demand on over 250 mobile and connected devices. Visit Reds.com or Indians.com for details.
All right, thanks, Chris. Back here in Goodyear, bottom of the fifth. And I tell you what, folks, for those of you back home still grinding your way through a long winter, it is picture perfect here in the Valley.
Well, you're just rubbing it in, aren't you?
I am.
Take great pride in that.
I
It's
do.
the biggest smile I've seen you have all day.
That's right.
I'm right with you.
It is gorgeous.
I don't know about Cleveland, but they were expecting some slushy snow in the Cincinnati area today.
Yeah, we had snow yesterday morning in Cleveland, I know. Here's David Huff on the hill now for the Indians. Left-hander who's fighting for a spot out of the bullpen. Zach Cozart lifts one high in the air, deep to left field. And the catch is made by Cedric Hunter. Indians have a new outfield. Cedric Hunter is in left. Tyler Naquin is now in center field. And Carlos Moncrief is taking over in right. There you see David Huff a year ago. 6 games overall, 4 starts, couple out of the bullpen. Former top pick of the tribe out of UCLA. He was a sandwich pick. And that's going to be an important pitch for David Huff for him to be effective. The separation between the fastball and something that takes the hitter off that fastball. And speaking of pitching, let's go down to the Cincinnati Reds dugout. Tom Brenneman is standing by with Matt Latos.
Well, Matt, you told me before the game you're a little sore. You get to that point in spring training. And, you know, I asked Chris Welsh, former Major League pitcher, about a tired arm, a dead arm. How do you explain that? Can you?
It's just a little fatigue. That's all it is. It's normal. Every pitcher goes through it, and you just got to push through it. We're fortunate we have a good training staff, and I got on the table earlier today, and with Christy and Paulie and them, and had them go through my arm and had them go through everything, and they made sure that they took care of everything, and I came out here and I threw five pretty good strong innings.
How'd you feel about your performance?
Great. I had a good feel for my changeup today and a good feel for my curveball, and I mean that's huge because the changeup is what I'm working on this year. In spring training and just trying to get a feel for my changeup, and it seems to be coming along real well.
This time last year, you're introducing yourself to everybody around here. Now a season as a Red under your belt. It must feel, I would imagine, considerably different this go around.
Yeah, there's a lot more, a lot less pressure. I'm a lot more comfortable around these guys, and actually have conversations with a lot of them where I won't hesitate to go up and ask them a question or just talk baseball as opposed to coming in on a new team and traded for 4 guys. So it's like who I just kind of stayed in my own kind of little bubble, I guess, for a little bit, and now it's good. It's good. We got a good group of guys.
Excited for year number 2 at Matt Latos on the hill. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you.
All right, guys, back upstairs to you.
Thanks, Tom. Well, that was a pretty good sequence of pitching there. David Huff against Joey Votto.
It really shows me that Votto didn't see that last pitch the way he swung at it, obviously.
No.
It shows me that David Huff hides the ball very well.
Shatters the bat. The ball goes foul. The barrel ended up toward the pitcher's mound. Xavier Paul will need a new stick. Take a look at the strike 3 pitch to Joey Votto, and this is what Chris was talking about. That's a kind of a half swing that you don't normally see from a guy like Joey Votto.
Yeah, Joey Votto is one of those hitters, and you can usually tell the guys with the best stats have the best eyesight. And he sees the ball so clearly coming out of the pitcher's hand. Very few times you see him fooled and swing like that. Now, it might be that he hasn't really studied David Huff very much, doesn't know his release spot, and so on and so forth. But that's a good sign. If I'm David Huff, I'm really happy with what I just did to Joey Votto.
That's got to give your confidence a little boost.
Yeah.
Up and away to Paul, 1 ball, 2 strikes. And for David, it's simply a case now of trying to show Frank Kona and company that he can be a guy to work out of the bullpen, whether it's for an inning or multiple innings. High pop, shallow left, Juan Diaz out. And now racing in to make the catch to end the inning. It's a 5-3 Cincinnati lead as we reach the middle of the 5th. Well, single game tickets for the 2013 Cleveland Indians season are on sale now. Buy early and save on seats for bobbleheads of 2 Tribe favorites. Albert Bell, June 1st, presented by Medical Mutual. And Omar Vizquel, July 8th, presented by KeyBank. Log on to Indians.com/promotions for the full promotional schedule. Right there. Isn't that a beautiful shot? Is that up near Sedona, I suppose? Yeah. Mass exodus here in the 6th inning as the guys who aren't going to play in today's game for both the Reds and the Indians are headed back to the main complex.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe that is where the term 5 and fly comes
from.
There
you go. I like it.
At the 5th inning of every game, this, the starters, especially starting pitchers who aren't in the ball game, and the guys that have played and been taken out, they leave at the 5th. They get out of here like they're giving away bags of 20s out there in the parking lot.
Well, Chris, what do you have for us on Pedro Villarreal, who spent last year at AAA?
Yeah, well, Pedro did spend just about the entire season at AAA last year. He did get up and pitch in 1 game for the Reds. That was one inning of work, so his earned run average at the major league level is 0. Right-hander. He's had kind of a tough spring, and I believe Pedro's already been sent down. They've called a lot of players up to fill in towards the end of these ball games that have already been officially reassigned to the minor leagues. Vial, one of those guys, not overpowering, good breaking ball. One of those pitchers that is probably versatile enough to pitch out of the bullpen and as a starter if he can show that he can get big league hitters out consistently.
Miguel Olivo takes over behind the plate. And, of course, Indians fans are familiar with Olivo from his days in Seattle and, of course, Chicago. Emmanuel Burris is now at second base.
And both the last two guys you spoke of, Miguel Olivo and Emmanuel Burris, are in fights to try to make this 25-man roster.
Well, I look at a guy like Olivo, and obviously he's got veteran experience. And does it come down to whether or not they feel like Devin Mesoraco is ready to be the everyday catcher?
Well, no, Devin will not be the everyday catcher because that belongs to Ryan Hanigan.
He's the guy.
He's the guy right now. But last year what happened was that he would split time about half and half with Devin Mesoraco. Mesoraco came to camp knowing he was going to have to really work hard to make this ball club. He's on the 40-man roster, of course, Mesoraco is. Miguel Olivo is not. He's 1 day shy of 10 years in the major league, so he's been around a long time. Yeah. But the one factor is that when you're a non-roster player like Olivo, the Reds have to take somebody off that 40-man roster to make a space for you, and sometimes they're reluctant to do that. Meanwhile, Mesoraco is having a very good spring, both defensively and offensively.
And, of course, that all comes back to where you've got two guys. You got a field manager and a general manager. And the general manager is looking at the big picture, long-term, future, all of that. The field manager is worried about today. I've got to win today's game. Who are the 25 guys that can help me win today's game? So sometimes they don't line up perfectly and they don't mesh together exactly. But, you look at Devin Mesoraco, and he's still a young player. So the question is do we have him as the backup where he's not going to play a lot, or do we want him playing every day at AAA?
Well, that's a good point. And I think the other point is that what do you have in the minor leagues that can help you out from the catcher standpoint if there's an injury, say, to Ryan Hanigan? And last year the Reds had Deoner Navarro, a veteran down in the minor leagues, and he was down there all year long. And then finally Ryan Hanigan gets hurt, and they bring Deoner Navarro up, and he took over really the majority of the catching while he was up. So if Miguel Olivo doesn't make the team, the question is, will he go to the minor leagues? If he will not go to the minor leads, then it leaves the catching core at AAA a little bit thin. You have Corky Miller, veteran minor league and / major league catcher down there, and they have a young, good prospect in Tucker Barnhart, but he's still really without a lot of AAA experience. So there is a long-term, short-term look to this that is kind of behind the scenes that I'm sure is debated a lot in the general manager's office.
Meanwhile, another good at-bat for Cord Phelps, who he's in that spot where, Chris, Cord Phelps, the guy who throughout his minor league career has shown the ability to hit. The Indians like his bat. Where he plays in the field, that's a little bit up in the air. He can play some infield spots, third base, second base. Potentially he could be a guy who gets some work at first base down the road. The old story is if you can hit, they'll find a spot for you. But right now, because of the makeup of this current Indians club, there just really isn't a spot for him, although, he could be pushing for one of those utility spots that could come down to the last days of camp before Terry Francona makes that official.
It's position players like Cord Phelps that make spring training games, worth watching. Because some of these guys are kind of out here almost on cruise control. They're quote-unquote getting their work in. Yep. And if they don't have a good outing, then so be it. They hit the batting cage or they go back to the pitching mound and they work on their stuff. But if you don't have the ball club made, man, you're playing every one of these games like the 7th game of the World Series.
And that brings us to Matt Carson, the batter, who Rick and I talked earlier, at 31 years of age. He's never gone to camp with that cruise control mindset. Yeah. And yet here he is still trying to find his way onto a big league roster.
Hey, really what you find, and I can tell you from experience, it's harder to stay in the big leagues than it is to make it to the major leagues, because there's a reason why when you come to one of the the complexes like the Indians or the Reds have, well, there are 4 fields back there, and every one of those fields is filled with a team and every one of those kids on that team wants your job. And there's a reason why they draft 40 rounds and they go out and they sign a lot of international players.
Runner going, good throw right on the money, and Miguel Olivo still has that strong arm, and he takes care of Cord Phelps for out number one.
Now he struggled a little bit from the offensive standpoint, but from behind the plate, they really like the way Miguel Olivo handles things. There's a good arm right on the money with the throw, but he handles the pitching staff well, and it was nice to see Miguel Olivo in camp. I think he had some other opportunities in other other organizations that had offered him contracts and invites to spring training. He decided to come to Cincinnati mainly because he liked Dusty Baker, and he thought this ball club's got a chance to win.
Boy, just missed with a low fastball, and Carson takes the walk. You saw Olivo almost Tony Pena style go down with a knee on the ground, try to get as low as he could with that target. Villarreal spotted that target and hit it, but apparently the glove just below the knees.
They'll rise out of the crowd right here. They got the score. I believe it's a final from the Big Ten basketball championship, where the Ohio State Buckeyes have defeated Wisconsin 50-43.
Well, that's congratulations to Thad Matta, because that's a terrific accomplishment. That was, you know, I'm not an expert, Chris, but I'm just going by what Clark Kellogg and company were saying. Big Ten, probably the best conference in the country in basketball. So to run that gauntlet and win the tournament, that's outstanding. And that should secure the Buckeyes, you would think, a number 2 seed.
I would think so.
We'll wait and see. That selection process will be done in the next couple of hours. Chris McGinnis takes the ball down low, and Rick and I were talking earlier about Chris McGinnis, a Rule 5 selection out of the Rangers organization, and he was pressing early in camp, and Terry Francona tried to tell him, look, you can't get 2 hits and 1 at bat, so just try to relax, and hey, we're watching it. He really likes him. Francona would love to find a way to keep McGinnis around, but highly unlikely that there's a spot for him on the 25-man roster. The question is, can they work out a deal with Texas to keep him here? Man, Olivo's going to go out and talk to Villarreal, who's fallen behind 2-1.
I mean, he's probably telling Villarreal the same thing that Francona's told McGinnis, which is just relax a little bit, show us what you can do, don't try to do too much. You know, the thought at spring training is that you're under so much pressure when you're on the bubble, like Villarreal. I mean, he's already been sent down, but he wants to leave a good remembrance or vision of himself here in the major leagues, and sometimes you just try too hard.
Two-one delivery. Missed just a ball or two off the plate, and it's 3-1. So McGinnis, who has good power, sitting in the catbird seat here, with the Indians down a pair in the 6th inning.
Good hitting count right here. This is what Francona wants to see, what he does on a 3-1 pitch, likely to get a fastball.
Chops it to first. It's in the hole and a base hit. Carson's going to hit second. He's going to go to third, kicking it around in the outfield, having a little trouble with it. And now the Indians have him at the corners with 1 out. I don't think it was going to matter even if Jay Bruce had come up with that cleanly. Carson had a pretty good break. I know Bruce has a terrific arm, but once he bobbled it, there was no chance.
It's not hit all that hard, number one. Number two, Bruce wants to show off his arm every chance he possibly can, because he does have one of the better right field arms in baseball. So you got to come up with it cleanly, but there's no way he was going to get him at third.
That's going to be a pretty good luxury for Cincinnati. We talk about in Cleveland how the Indians will have 3 center fielders from a speed perspective. From a throwing arm standpoint, you've got Bruce in right and Chu in center. That's 2 of the top arms in all of baseball in the outfield.
You know, sometimes outfield defense is overlooked, but in the case of the Indians, when you have 3 speedsters like you do in the outfield, and say they only cut off, say, 2 balls a week that would normally go in the gap for doubles, but they're outs. You know, you have to start calculating at that point how many pitches that saves your pitching staff, how many times the manager doesn't have to go to middle relief because of that. And it really does have a positive effect on the entire club if you can go get them.
The 0-1. Checked. It's a little bit high. Justin Masterson was even joking that He might give up his sinker. Get a few more fly balls with that outfield he's got behind him now.
There's some ballparks you can do that in. I'm not so sure Progressive Field falls into that category.
Or like we saw in the first inning, sometimes you get the ball in the air and they can't catch them. Those fly balls that end up over the fence are not good. Bruce will make the catch, tagging at third, trying to score. Here comes the throw to the plate, and he is safe. Matt Carson with a good tag and dash to the plate. The Indians are within a run as Cincinnati's lead is now 5-4.
Well, the key for Diaz right there is simply get the ball into the outfield. You've got a guy at third base, less than 2 outs. The worst thing you can do is strike out or maybe hit a ground ball double play, obviously. But, you know, the idea, and you practice this in batting practice. I mean, if you hang around the cage, you always hear the hitting coaches tell you, all right, get the runner over, get him in from third, and you practice getting that ball in the air, and you did a nice job.
Fundamental execution. And, you know, Chris, you were just talking about in the outfield. When an outfielder runs down a ball in the gap, or when an outfielder goes to the line and keeps one from getting into the corner for a double or a triple, you know, how does that add up over the course of a season? Well, the same thing can be said of executing with a runner at third and less than 2 out. When you get that run home from third in, say, the third or fourth inning, now you're a run closer in the 7th and 8th innings. So instead of it maybe being a 2 or 3 run gap, maybe it's only 1 or a 2 run game. And the situation has just changed dramatically for a manager and how he can execute and put the pressure on the opposition.
I think that's why managers like those type of players who can change their approach based on the situation at hand.
Hernandez lines one up the middle into center field, and McGinnis will stop at second. Nice piece of hitting there, and the Indians have 2 on with 2 out. We'll get a pinch runner for Luis Hernandez.
Villarreal getting the ball up, and there's one thing about getting the ball up. When an announcer says that, he doesn't mean the ball's up around the letters. He means that ball is somewhere between the thighs and the waist, and boy, he got that ball right down the middle, turned a good fastball into a cookie.
We got a timeout as Brian Price, the Reds pitching coach, will go to the mound to talk to Villarreal. Justin Masterson was the starter today for the Indians, roughed up in the first inning, a 5-spot, couple of long balls.
Now, is there another sport out there that even during the exhibition season, you see a guy that's been taken out? Say about your next NFL preseason football game. You see a guy get taken out.
Tom Brady doing wind sprints in the end zone?
How about that?
I don't think so. That's the leisurely pace that is spring training baseball. Always has been, always will be. There's Tony Walters running at first base now for the Indians.
Aside from that 5-spot that Masterson gave up in the first inning, he threw the ball very well.
Throw back to second. It goes into center field. McGinnis will take off. He'll get to third. And alertly, Tony Walters moves up behind him, and he's at second. So 2 now in scoring position on the errant throw by Olivo, and I'm not sure if that was simply just a pure bad throw by Olivo, or if Cozart got himself blocked out to the point where he couldn't get off the bag to knock it down.
Yeah, the throw was a little bit to the third base side of the bag, but Cozart got tangled up with the runner. As you see the runners trying to go back to the base right there. Umpire immediately says, no foul play right there. So they first and third, make it second and third now for the Indians.
Ryan Girolamo at the plate now. Chance to do some damage and takes a strike. It's 1-1.
Boy, the Indians running a lot of left-handers up there tonight. Of course, with the switch hitters, there were 3 switch hitters in the starting lineup. And 4 left-handers. So they were trying to make it tough on a right-handed starter.
Roped, but fouled on the right side, and a broken bat for Girolamo. Well, as you remember last year from our encounters in interleague play, the Indians had a very left-handed dominant lineup a season ago. They just could not find the right-handed hitters to find some balance. That won't be the case this year. They you know, with Nick Swisher, a switch hitter, with Asdrubal Cabrera being a switch hitter, they've got some balance. You've got Mark Reynolds, right-handed power bat. So they have more balance in that lineup. And you know, with Carlos Santana, who as a young player was called on primarily to hit cleanup, now that switch hitter is going to move down maybe 6th, maybe 7th in the lineup. So that's going to certainly help things out for Cleveland. The 1-2 coming up to Girolamo with runners at 2nd and 3rd. Reds lead it 5-4. Spun him out of the way.
Where pitching coach's dream pitch right there. You get a good inside fastball right underneath the elbows, and now you've opened up the entire outside part of the plate. If Villarreal can throw that ball down and away right here, either with fastball or changeup, he'll probably have his man.
The 2-2. Fouled right back. Well, either way, this will probably, I'm just speculating, probably be the last man for Villarreal. They've got the left-hander up in the Cincinnati bullpen, and the left-handed hitting Tyler Naquin, the Indians' first-round pick just last year, is on deck. It looks like De La Rosa, Wilkin De La Rosa warming up. Second and 3rd, 2 down, and the 2-2 pitch. Girolamo with a hard hit bouncer to first, and that will get the Reds out of the inning. Indians get another run closer. They trail by a run 5-4 as we head now to the bottom of the 6th.
Forget to join Jeff Pecoro, Jim Day, and myself as we bring you Reds Live spring training version right here from Goodyear, Arizona. It comes on weeknights at 10 p.m., Monday through Friday, and we'll have all sorts of interviews and features. We'll give you updates of what's going on down here in Reds Country Southwest with news from the desert. So tune in, and if you have any questions about the Reds, I guarantee you that if I don't answer them, which I probably won't, Jim Day and Jeff Pecoro probably will.
They will, in fact, answer whether they've got the answer or not. Here's Matt Capps, last year with the Minnesota Twins. Logged 14 saves. Right-hander, a swing and a miss to Jay Bruce. Omir Santos, who we saw briefly last year get some time with the Detroit Tigers in the big leagues, takes over behind the plate. It's outside, 2-1. Tony Walters now in the game at second base. And Francisco Lindor has taken over at short. These two, very talented duo in the middle of the diamond. And Chris McGinnis knocks that one into shallow right field. There's a case where first baseman has to know the range of the guy playing to his right. And I imagine they haven't had a lot of opportunities to be on the field together, because Walters would have been there to make that play easily. Watch Walters.
Playing very deep anyway, McGinnis is, and even if he makes this play, it's going to be very difficult for him to stop, turn, and hit that pitcher on the run as he crosses the first base bag. Yeah, but again, it might be a situation where McGinnis trying to do just a little bit too much to show Terry Francona that he's ready.
Here's Todd Frazier stepping in for Cincinnati. Tony Walters, by the way, the second baseman in there for Cleveland, he's just 20 years old, and third-round pick back in 2010, led the Carolina League in triples. Hit 291 in the second half of the season last year. And then the guy to his right, the shortstop, was the Indians' first-round pick 2 seasons ago, number 8th overall, Francisco Lindor. Lindor, just a very talented player, and what I've heard about him that I think is the high praise is that he's got great baseball aptitude. Chris, he's constantly talking to his teammates, talking to his coaches and managers about situations, and you love guys who just really immerse themselves in the game. They're not looking at their stat line, they're not looking at the video board, they just want to talk the game.
Yeah, I know that they think a lot of him. He's the #1 rated prospect in the Indians organization right now. It's nice to have that guy in the shortstop position, your #1 guy.
Emmanuel Burris will now face Matt Capps, who's got 2 on and nobody out here in the bottom of the 6th, with Cincinnati leading it 5-4.
Wasn't all that long ago that Emmanuel Burris was the starting second baseman for the San Francisco Giants. I think you go back to 2009, he held that position down. He lost it, eventually had some injuries. He signed a minor league contract back in November with an invite here to spring training. One of those guys, non-roster player, really needs to really be better than good in spring training to make this ball club at least right out of camp.
Burris with a swing and a miss. Cord Phelps was creeping in a little bit at third. He's just in front of the bag.
This is where you really see the strategy of a spring training game way different than a regular season game. If Dusty Baker's really trying to win this game and you have Emmanuel Burris up, first 2 runners on, nobody out, he's having them bunt. Move the runners over and let the next guy drive him in. But here he wants to see what Burris can do with runners on base.
Capps with a 1-1. And it's outside, 2 balls and a strike. Matt Capps missed some time earlier in camp. He had a sore right shoulder that he rehabbed during the offseason.
He used to have a real blazing fastball, Matt Capps did, and doesn't look like he's got it quite back up to speed today.
I mentioned he pitched with Minnesota. That's where we're most familiar with him, but you saw him when he pitched with the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Exactly.
Bunted hard back to the mound. Capps off the mound, spins, fires to third, and they get the lead runner. Good athletic play there by Capps.
Yeah, I don't know if Emmanuel Burris did that on his own or whether it was called from the bench. Either way, you know, you have to keep in mind that when you're a bunter in a situation where first and second and nobody out, it's a forced play at third base, so it makes it very easy to get that lead runner unless you make the third baseman field the ball.
Well, Chris, as a former pitcher, you certainly had your share of bunting practice, and the one thing I noticed is Burris, he jabbed at the ball instead of letting the bat deaden it. He kind of jabbed it, so he forced it back towards the pitcher's mound.
Yeah, I think he maybe was trying to jab that ball by the pitcher and just got it too much up the middle.
So 2 on 1 out for Miguel Olivo, who never met a pitch he didn't like and pops this one up on the infield. Walters has that. 2 down. I didn't realize Chris, but you see your fair share of free swingers over the years, and watching Josh Hamilton, we know that he's an aggressive swinger. I didn't realize that he led majors last year in first pitch swings.
A lot of guys just don't feel comfortable when they get 2 strikes on them, and they don't feel comfortable hitting the breaking ball. And I heard Rick Manning say earlier on, in spring training especially, I wanted to hit the fastball so I'd swing early on so they would never get to a situation where they throw the breaking ball. A lot of guys carry that into the season.
Mm-hmm. Interesting that a guy could be that successful, like Hamilton, and yet be that predictable, I guess. Pitch up high. Saw Cody Allen warming up in that Indians bullpen. As Matt Capps has fallen behind 2-0 here to Jeffrey Sierra. With 2 on, 2 out in the bottom of the 6th inning. Matt Underwood, Chris Welsh, Tom Brenneman, and Rick Manning. All with you here today in Goodyear. Tied him up, and it's 2-1.
Now Sierra, one of these kids that they brought up out of the Reds minor league system today for this ball game. He's signed out of the Dominican Republic several years ago. Last couple of years he's been at Dayton, the Reds A-ball club. He's got some wheels. Question is hitting.
Pitch outside. And now 3 balls and a strike. Three 3-1 offering. Did he chase? He did, in a full count. So the runners will be off with this 3-2 pitch to Jeffrey Sierra, and the Reds leading 5-4 in the bottom of the 6th inning. Chop to third, but it will go foul.
Pretty good crowd here at Goodyear Stadium, to Goodyear Ballpark today for this interleague rivalry.
Well, it seems like we get a little deeper into March. More and more people bring the kids. Spring break now. Last night, 11,000 with the Giants in here to play the Indians. Sold out house.
Boy, they travel, don't they, those Giants fans?
Do. Again, the runners will move on the 3-2 as Capps turns and bluffs the move towards second base. That the old fake throw to third, throw to first is now outlawed this year in baseball. It'll be interesting to see who's the first guy to forget that and pick up a balk call. Runners go, payoff pitch, ball 4, and they're loaded. There you can see with Matt Capps, who's missed some time and had to rehab the sore shoulder in the offseason, the command just not quite as sharp as he would like.
Yeah, I'm sure that he'd have much rather gotten Jeffrey Sierra right there, had just been able to throw a strike over the plate. Now he's going to have the bases loaded, and really the Reds' #1 prospect, if not the #1, the very close to it, Billy Hamilton, coming to the plate.
Speedy outfielder.
I would say so. 155 stolen bases last year. 155.
That's
minor league record.
Pop foul, out of play. How's his power? Does he?
Well, he doesn't have any power. I mean, I don't think they want him to sit back and hit any power.
The reason I ask you is because, you talk about scouting and you look for players, and, the 5 tool guys. That's a scout's, blue diamond. But, so often is the case, you find a guy, maybe he's got a good bat, but the glove is suspect, or he got a great glove, but can't hit, or, maybe the speed is not there for a certain guy.
Well, with Billy Hamilton, the transition that he's making this year from being a middle infielder to an outfielder is one thing he's concentrating on. You can see his build. He's never going to be a big home run hitter, obviously. He did hit a triple yesterday, roped it down the right field line, and an easy 3 for him. But the Reds boast about having the hardest thrower in Aroldis Chapman and the fastest runner in baseball in Billy Hamilton.
Well, he's put himself in a good spot here. 2 balls and a strike with the bases loaded and 2 down. Cincinnati leading by a run. Matt Capps in a little bit of a jam here with the bases filled with Reds. Cody Allen ready to be called on in the Indians bullpen. Fly ball left. And a catch is made to end the inning. So the Reds leave them loaded, but they lead it 5-4 as we are through 6 innings here in Goodyear.
All right, for the Reds fans, baseball is back. Your Reds in action April 1st, 3rd, and the 4th. They'll take on the Angels in the season-opening 3-game series presented by Cincinnati Bell. Opening night is Wednesday, April the 3rd. Pre-game, you can see the Reds players walk the red carpet out in the fan zone. We'll have a team calendar giveaway and a post-game fireworks show during that series. Call 513-381-REDS. Visit select Kroger locations or visit reds.com/tickets. Pleasure to be joined by our old buddy Rick Manning. Rick and I have had a chance to do a number of games together, and it's always a lot of fun. How you been? You live out here during the winter time.
Yes, I do. From October till the start of the year. It's a chilly winter for out here, but it's been spectacular here the last week or so. It's been fun. I know you spent a lot of time here in the Valley.
Yep, spent a lot of years here, about 12 of them here, and it's a great place.
Yeah,
a lot of great people. Wilkin De La Rosa takes over now on the mound. You see his numbers in AA Pensacola last season for the Reds. Opponent batting average of .224. Struck out nearly a batter per inning, but 27 walks in 43 innings. Tyler Naquin, you guys talked about him a little bit earlier, a #1 pick for the Indians. And where is he slated more than likely to begin this year?
Well, he went to Mahoning Valley last year, and I don't know if he'll move up to Lake County or he'll move up after that. But, you know, they have high hopes for him. Not a power guy, a contact hitter, hit for average. Center fielder, and the key for the young kid is staying healthy.
What's nice in it having a team in Lake County so close to the major league club, much like the Reds have the team in Dayton.
Yeah, I mean it's nice. You can keep tabs on the guys. It's right there, and they also have you know, Akron is their AA team, and Columbus is their AAA team. So they really have it set up nicely.
Fastball in there, strike 3 called, and that's all for Naquin to begin the 7th inning with the Reds holding a 1-run lead.
You know, when you talk to guys like Tim Belcher, who lives in Columbus and does a lot of work for the Indians, you know, and Mark Shapiro, I mean, Chris Antonetti, he'll stop in Columbus and see their AAA team and then come see the Indians and also Akron. So it helps those guys, the scouts or the guys that are looking with the teams or working with the ball clubs as well.
And you know what? It's a win-win for everybody. I think a lot of us who are so close to the game and are so privileged to be a part of baseball your whole life, I mean adult life anyway, and mine too for that matter, although some might debate the adult part. But the point being is that, you know, for the guys who are working in the organization that are able to make the 1 or 2 day trip where you can drive, still get back and spend some time with your family, whatever the case may be, as opposed to getting on a plane. You're gone for 6, 7, 9 days. You get back, your family can't even remember your name. You're saving money as an organization. There's a lot of positives.
Yeah, people don't realize the behind-the-scenes things that go on when you're scouts or when you're part of an organization. You spend time all year long doing that. It does make a big difference.
Carlos Moncrief, the batter, with 1 down and nobody on. Boy, it doesn't matter what Cactus League game, Grapefruit League game you go to, there are scouts all over the place. There's a fastball strike, and trying to find players on other teams at your organization. If you need some help in a certain area, you send your guys out. Hey, you've got the Reds, you've got the Indians. You follow them through a couple of weeks of spring training. Foul tipped into the mitt. And that is strike 3, back-to-back strikeouts for De La Rosa.
Yeah, he's wasting no time. I think one of the reasons the scouts like the Arizona area, because of the multi-complexes here, they can go and have a headquarters, whether it's in Scottsdale, and they can pretty much cover the whole spring training area out of one location, as opposed to where you have to get up and move, and you may be registered to 2, 3, 4 teams, but you'll be able to get to catch them all, and it's within 20 minutes at times. That's one thing that makes it very nice here in the Valley.
There is no doubt about that. Cedric Hunter, 25 years old, spent last season in Memphis. Originally selected by the San Diego Padres, and he puts a charge into this one to right field. And that's up against a wall. Played perfectly off the wall out there and right. That's a long, loud single.
Well, that was played perfectly as right. One hop off the wall, and with 2 outs, that's the first thing you're thinking is, let's go get myself into scoring position, down a run. But he made the hard turn and realized that he played it beautifully and got the ball in and had to hold up for a 2-out single. Nice throw.
Dennis Phipps out there now in right field for the Reds, taking over for Jay Bruce. Billy Hamilton stays in the game, and he's now playing center field. Of course, Hamilton making that transition from shortstop, the only position professionally he has ever played. Now in center field, and boy, you talk about good tutelage. Eric Davis has been here every day.
To help him?
To help him and Sin Soo Choo.
Oh, boy, that's a great idea.
Line into center, and Hamilton. Good jump. And he doesn't need much of a jump.
No, but he had a good one.
You used to run him down like that.
He had a good one.
Well, welcome back here to Goodyear, Arizona, where the Cincinnati Reds lead the Indians. And we're happy to be joined. Sandy Alamar. And Sandy, the one thing that we've talked a lot about, it's been written a lot about, is just a different sort of atmosphere in camp. You've got some veterans in here, you've got a new manager, a lot of changes. What have been your observations about the sort of the atmosphere and the feel around this camp so far this spring?
A lot of optimism, a lot of energy, very organized. The guys they're coming to the ballpark ready to play, and they expect to win.
Obviously, when you get veteran players in here, that can certainly change the mood. You went through that as a young team coming up in the mid-'90s, and adding veterans like back in the day, Dennis Martinez, Eddie Murray, sort of help things. From your experience, what can veterans do to help young players specifically?
Well, they can do a lot. Teach them how to play the game the winning way, with the right attitude, with a swagger to become a winning team. And you don't feel like when you're a young guy coming up in an organization, you don't feel like you have to be the guy. There's many guys that can do the job, and you don't feel like you have to carry the whole load.
That specifically leads me to ask you about Carlos Santana, who, the last couple of years was asked a lot up to bat cleanup as a very young player, and that may not be the case now. Will that help him to sort of just relax and be the player that he can be, not necessarily the player that everyone wants him to be?
Well, not only head cleanup, but also to carry a staff and head cleanup. It's a lot to ask for a young guy, especially still learning the craft of catching. And I think he don't have to have that burden on him anymore, because we have guys like Switcher and Michael Bourne in the team, and now the other guys that are younger guys that also have more experience. They're going to help him a lot.
This is a pitching staff that obviously people are wondering, can this pitching staff be good enough? Because this team will only go as far as this pitching staff can carry it. What have been your observations so far about Masterson, Jimenez, McAllister, and Brett Myers, the new guy?
Well, so far, when Mickey is being established, he's pounding the zone early in camp, and at the beginning we were a little bit, but now we are throwing a lot of strides, keeping the team in the game. So far it's been a great camp pitching-wise.
And, of course, it's a bullpen that's been very strong the last couple of years, and obviously it's a bullpen they're going to lean on once again this year.
Well, definitely. Now you have Cody Allen pitching right now. We have more experience this year. I think that with Vinny and Chris Perez and Cody Allen, and a few guys that we have left in the free agent market that we got in, and I think it's going to be a great help.
Sandy, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
That's Sandy Alamar. Let's go back now upstairs to Tom.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. Cody Allen pitched in 27 games for the Indians a season ago. He raced right up the minor league system: Carolina, Akron, Columbus, Cleveland.
Yeah, fast tracker last year because of the situation of the bullpen. He came up and did a really good job. He throws in the mid-90s, got a nice breaking ball, and this guy is right on the cut. He could be a big help for this bullpen this year.
Well, speaking of big, here's Donald Lutz, and boy, are the Reds high on this young man. He was born in Waterton, New York. But at 1 year young, he moved to Germany, and that's where he grew up. So didn't play a lot of baseball. He just turned 24 years old and rated by Baseball America as the best power hitter in the Reds organization. 6'3", 251 pounds, and Dusty Baker has been quoted multiple times during this camp, Lutz's first big league camp, as believing this guy has a chance to be a really good everyday major league player.
Well, Tommy, as you know, that's what it takes, is a lot of at-bats and a lot of reps, especially if you didn't play a lot when you were a kid. So some kids, it takes a little longer. Only 24. He still has a lot of good years left. But you can see by the swing, if he can connect, that's a nice quick swing through the zone.
Well, you hear that a lot about the big guys, about the big, long swing.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, you played, Rick, for a long, long time. It's one thing for, to hear, we got to change this guy's swing. We got to cut down on the strikeouts. But when you've been doing something a certain way for a long, long time, and you're a big man, and there's a big fly ball off the bat of Heisey that is long gone, a home run for Chris Heisey.
Don't have to change that swing. That was down, and that was nasty. He got it out in a hurry. We're going to see a fastball right down Broadway, and you don't get away with that one too often, even in spring training. He connected. That went a long way. So they get their 2-run lead back, 6-4 Cincinnati.
Now Dennis Phipps, and I just wanted to ask you about that, Bill, but to all of a sudden expect overnight to change a guy's swing, that can't be easy.
No, it can't be easy. And I'll tell you, for a big guy, this is the first swing I saw him take. He got through the hitting area. It's not like he had to extend his arms and get him through. He got through the hitting area nicely. It just takes a matter of at-bats. You know, you want to get 1,000 at-bats in the minor leagues to have an idea and just to see pitching. And if you're with some of the same coaches that can help you out, you don't have to change a lot if you have a little talent.
Trying to learn the game, Lutz basically spent 3 full years in rookie ball, 08, 09, and 2010. It's just been the last couple of years where he's gone from low A, high A, double A.
And he's starting to get it. It's starting to click in the mind.
That one hit a long way as well, and the Reds have gone back-to-back on the home run by Dennis Phipps. The ball's flying out of here today if you get in the air.
That can happen out in Arizona, but first inning we saw one go off the batter's eye, and this one looked like it was higher up than the first one. It can carry out here. He's a big kid too. There's another fastball down the middle of the plate, and he knew it as soon as he hit it. Hitters can tell that one was farther.
So the lead swells to 3 and is 7-4, and now the Reds continue to empty their bench as they bring on arguably the best young hitter they have in their entire organization, and that's Henry Rodriguez. Switch hitter. He's played second base, he's played third base. Trying to find a regular position for him has so far been the problem. But he can really hit.
Well, if you can hit, they will find a position for you eventually. That's why a lot of these guys nowadays have to play 2-3 different positions. I was talking to Jason Donald today before the game, who played with the Indians and the Reds acquired in the offseason. What a great kid, but now he feels comfortable playing third, playing second, playing short. It takes a while to get used to something like that, and learning a new position, it can take away from you at home plate.
0-2 on Rodriguez. And he struck him out, and that will retire the side. But the Reds play long ball. Back-to-back home runs. Heisey. Phipps. End of 7. 7-4 Cincinnati.
On your favorite ballpark food for every game at Progressive Field this year. $4 12-ounce domestic beers, $3 hot dogs, $2 soda refills, and $1 hot dogs on $15 dog nights. Not to mention lower prices on nachos, pretzels, popcorn, and more. Log on to Indians.com for more information.
$4 beer.
Yeah. I've already ordered you a case.
Thank
paid
you.
for it.
Thank
in
you.
full,
You did?
my friend, and it's green.
I don't believe
it's
it.
Coming up to you.
Nice. Now, is Manning Irish, or is that a stupid question?
No, it's not a stupid question. maybe a hint.
Okay.
I've got to go check the family tree. I think it's more Scottish than Irish.
That's what I was thinking, but I was wondering, but it's in that neck of the woods.
Yeah, hey, it's close enough.
Okay, all right.
It's close enough.
All right. Jonathan Broxton came over from Kansas City. Of course, he was their closer last year after they had the injury early in the season and did a nice job in that role. You saw a lot of Jonathan Broxton playing inside the American League Central.
Well, and supposed to be the closer this year for you guys, but who knows what's going to happen as the spring finishes out. But the big man, he can still do it. He doesn't throw as hard as he did when he first came up. And I think if you get into that closer's role every day in that position, he's going to have to develop his breaking ball to be able to get a secondary pitch over if you don't have the fastball to be consistent in the closer's role.
Well, he did an excellent job after coming over in the trade from Kansas City. And then the Reds signed him to a 3-year contract during this offseason, thinking, as Rick mentioned, that he would be their closer, with the grand plan being that Aroldis Chapman would be moving out of the closer's role and into the starting rotation. And it's been within the last 24 hours where you wonder where all that stands now on the fly ball to right field by Carson. For those of you just joining us, or maybe in Cleveland that don't follow the Reds, Aroldis Chapman has been working as a starter this entire spring. He started in a game against the Giants yesterday, went 4 innings, allowed 1 run, and then through an interpreter after the game said, "I'd rather be closing." So now there will be a meeting forthcoming, undoubtedly. It might even happen right after the game today, where Walt Jocketty, the Reds general manager, the manager Dusty Baker, and all the other baseball people will get together and decide, okay, what now? If that's what Chapman wants to do, how much input does a player have in this kind of decision?
I think they'll get behind closed doors and they'll iron this out. It's what's best for the organization and for the team. It's not what the individual wants. Look, you're hired to do whatever you need to do to help the team win.
Knocked down, backed up, but no play.
Before they even put him into that closer's role, they knew he could do a good job just the way he throws the baseball. I mean, none like it. So they'll figure it out, and you know what? He'll come to the realization, what can I do to help the Cincinnati Reds? You won 97 games last year. You don't come out, and if they felt that they needed you in the starting rotation to become a better team, go into the starting rotation. What difference does it make?
Well, there's so many arguments, and there's so many good arguments, and we talked a little bit about some of those before the game started, about why he should stay in the closer's role, about why it's a good idea to put him into the starting rotation. I mean, look, I hear both sides of it, and I get it. I'll be the first to admit I was a big fan of him going into the rotation, but it's not me that's doing it. If he wants to do it, that's his decision.
It's comfort zone, and I think he had a good year coming out of the bullpen. That's probably why he wants to go back there, and starting's not an easy job. Even though it might be the best job in all the world. You pitch once every 5 days, you get into your routine, and if you're successful at it, there's not a better job in the world than being a starting pitcher. But we heard Bronson Arroyo talk about it with Chris in the dugout. He says, hey, there's a lot more to starting than just coming into that 9th inning. You got to hit. You got to learn how to go through 2 or 3 pitches to get through a lineup 2 times or 3 times now to be successful. And the kind of starting rotation the Reds had last year, where all 5 guys started at least 30 games, you're almost surprised that they wanted to start them as good as they were last year. I think I would stay with the same thing, but they know a lot more than we do. I mean, with Dusty, right. and you look at them. We're just looking from afar and being fans and looking for a team. How do you improve on 97 wins?
Tapper down to third. Glove by Rodriguez. They get 1, and that's all they'll get. And they're 2 away here in the Indians' 8th inning. When you look at the Indians, let's shift gears to them for a minute. And we've talked a lot about both teams here today. You were so excited about having Terry Francona here as a manager, and instantaneously the difference it made and is making already in the clubhouse. But then to go out and spend a little money, it says to your fan base, hey, look, we're trying to win. You thought those were good moves, all of them.
Well, I do. I mean, it all came back. The Indians had to do something. At the end of last year in October, I'll tell you, there were a lot of fans and people down on the Indians the way that, the season went. We'll get into it.
We'll get back. And in the inning, 1 man left. We played 7 1/2. We are making Chris Welsh stick around because he's going to have to work the 9th inning today.
Beautiful. He's always
Hyundai under.
To 66555, and the Budweiser Clydesdales could show up at your front door with a pair of opening day tickets.
beautiful.
Thanks to the official beer sponsor of Major League Baseball and the Reds, Budweiser. You must be 21 to enter, and no purchase necessary.
That would be great. All right, I want to remind you that tomorrow Indians coverage against the Milwaukee Brewers will be on the air at 4 o'clock. That'll be on Sports Time Ohio, and Spring Training Daily will return March 25th. Matt will bring it to you down here from Arizona, 9:30 p.m. So keep up on it as we wind down Spring Training 2013.
2 weeks from tomorrow, opening day.
Yes. On Monday, the Indians will open up on the Tuesday after that. So, I mean, yeah, but we're here. Looking forward to it. You've got to be too, huh? Ready to go?
Fired up. We are fired up. And, you know, the Reds, obviously the oldest team in professional baseball. They played the first night game in the history of professional baseball. Once that one hit the ground, you weren't going to throw out the runner at first base. So Emmanuel Burris reaches on an infield hit to begin the bottom of the 8th inning. And so now the Reds will also become the first team ever to open up interleague play to begin a major league season.
And they open up against who? The Angels?
The Angels.
That's some power right there.
Big league series.
Yes,
right out of
it is. It sure is. Out of the chute.
Yes.
You better be ready.
They better be ready.
The bell better, yeah, once it rings, they'll be ready. I guess now's the time you start talking to players and they start saying, I'm ready for the bell to ring. Let's go. They're ready to get out of here.
Runner takes off, throw down to second, and Burris is out trying to steal second. That's a nice throw right there.
Well, a pretty good tag. It looked like he had a terrific jump. I thought he was going to be in there. The throw was there, got it down in a hurry. And let's check that replay out. It was awfully close. Looked like he got the foot in there, but called out. Trying to slide away from the tag.
And now Miguel Olivo, the batter.
Miguel has been around. Nice defender, still can throw the baseball. Loves to hit the fastball too. He loves it.
Well, you saw him up with the White Sox.
Yes, I've seen him with a number of Seattle, with the White Sox all over the place. I remember, when he started with the White Sox, went to Seattle. He's been around. I thought he'd be a good pickup for somebody because he's still a good catcher.
Well, the Reds had the Deoner Navarro in that role last year at the end of the year. But all of a sudden, the former #1 pick, Devin Mesoraco, has had such an outstanding spring. I think the Reds wanted to see him start at AAA and play every day rather than
to develop.
I mean,
you have to develop guys, young players like that.
But it's starting to look like more and more that he might end up being with the opening day roster after all, as Brian Shaw is now on the mound for the Tribe. He was a busy man with the Arizona Diamondbacks last year. 64 games. This is one of those guys, and we only see the Diamondbacks 2 series a year, but one of those guys where there are days he walks out on the mound and you watch him throw the ball, kind of like he's throwing the ball right now. And you say to yourself, how does anybody ever hit this guy? And then you'll see the same guy 2 days later, and you're wondering, what happened to the guy I saw 2 days ago?
Yeah. Well, consistency, but he's going to get his work out of the bullpen. When you say they appear 60 times out of the bullpen, and a lot of times they get into that role. And, you know, on this team with the Indians, he'll probably be a 6th inning guy, 5th, 6th inning guy. And if you could be consistent there, whether you're down a couple runs, keep the score where it's at, you fill your role nicely.
Christopher Negron, the batter, and he looks at a strike, 2-2. Well, look, I know, Cleveland, Cincinnati. There's always a rivalry between the towns, and especially football. But in baseball, I think everybody that roots for the Reds is hoping it's going to be a good year for the Tribe as well. So we will see you guys during this season, Mr.
That's
Man.
right, a 2-2, home and home for 2 games in each town.
Be good, my friend.
See you then, friend.
The big league experience this summer with the official Reds baseball and softball camps presented by Safeco Insurance. All campers receive their own Reds uniform, special instruction from a Reds coach, on-field VIP experience at Great American Ballpark, plus a guest appearance by a current Reds star during the camp. For more information on the official Reds camps, visit reds.com/camps today. Look at that shot right there. Beautiful Sonoran Desert. We're in Goodyear, Arizona. And the Reds with a 7-4 lead as the Indians bat here in the top of the 9th inning. And we welcome Chris Welsh back to the broadcast booth.
Tommy, how you doing?
Boy, it's been a great day again.
It has been. Nice to see Rick Manning and Matt Underwood. Good interview down the dugout you did with Matt Latos.
And you and Bronson Arroyo. I missed it. I was walking down to the dugout right before you were walking up. Well, I tell you what, though, Bronson's always so great to try and deal with or ask for anything as Daniel Wolford takes over on the mound. His numbers at Single A Bakersfield. Did you play in the Cal League?
I did not.
I am told that is a pitcher's nightmare. Very hot. Very, very hard infields, because it's so dry in a lot of the places where they play. And that it's much like the PCL was for many years.
Well,
a hitter's paradise.
I would presume that just looking at the map of where the teams are in the A-ball Cal League versus the Major League, when you make the Major Leagues, you're on the coast. When you're in A-ball, you're well inland, and you're right. It's like a lot of desert towns.
That one hammered by Omir Santos, and that is gone. Good fella put a charge into that one to make it a 7-5 game.
right in the wheelhouse. Well, we've seen some long home runs hit so far today. Chris Heisler's ball was hit a long way. Dennis Phipps, man, oh man, I thought he was going to knock down the batter's eye with that ball.
So now Tyler Naquin struck out his only time up, and that one gets right by the drawn-in third baseman Henry Rodriguez. Well, we brought it up earlier about Rodriguez. As far as swinging the bat, the Reds have very few players that you would put ahead of him as a better hitter than Rodriguez. The trick is going to be finding the right position for him.
And they've tried him all around the infield already this year. He plays a lot of second base in spring training games. They've got him over at third today. That was not an easy chance, but still in all, they would like to see him improve on his glove work before they consider him a guy that, you know, would be a cinch to make the roster. But boy, he can hit.
You know, Jeff Brantley, our colleague over on the Reds radio side, who of course does a number of games here on the Reds television side as well, drew the analogy of what the Reds are trying to do with Rodriguez to what he saw the San Francisco Giants do to a guy who came up with the label of all hit and very little glove, who ironically enough, due to just hard work, Charlie Hayes turned into an excellent defensive player and had a really, really good major league career. That ball is killed in the right center field. And just like that, this game is tied at 7. Carlos Moncrief hits a laser to the deepest part of right center field. That's a big, strong young man.
I'll tell you what, we've seen two of them back-to-back with Santos and now Moncrief. Wolford just trying to rear back and throw the ball, and it goes right down the middle, and man, oh man. They're dialing 8 in Goodyear.
It's very evident. Just look in the bullpens for both teams, although there is a little action right now in the Reds bullpen. You wonder if we would have another tie should it end this way. Nice play by Burris from the infield grass in short center, 1 out. Reds had a split squad game yesterday, and one of the games against the Milwaukee Brewers ended in a tie.
Third baseman, Court Phelps.
Court Phelps has gone the entire way. As a hit, has been on twice, has scored a run. Or Mr. Moncrief. That ball was kissed. So, Chris, you will continue to stay out here in spring training.
I will be.
And each and every night
at 10 o'clock,
Fox Sports Ohio. And bring everybody up to date on the ongoings of what's happening out here on a daily basis.
Reds Live spring training, March to opening day. Yep, the 3 hardest workers on the Fox Sports Ohio payroll out here. And that would be Jim Day, Jeff Picoro, and Josh Hall.
Well, what about Kent Dream Weaver?
Well,
or Ronnie Millinor?
They're in the running.
All right. Where do you fall in line?
Way, way back.
All right.
It's a fun show to do, though. The guys on this ball club are so good with us and the media as far as giving interviews, doing features, kind of giving updates. I think it was a great idea to put the show on. I think it's been well received at home, and hope that you folks have a chance to tune us in a time or two before opening day comes around 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Hanekoa Teixeira getting loose in the bullpen as there's another base hit. This one by Phelps, and the Indians have the go-ahead run aboard here in the top of the ninth. Matt Carson, like Phelps until now, has played the entire game. So a good day for Court Phelps. Couple of hits, drew a walk. And here's Carson, who has a couple of hits, has drawn a walk, and has scored 2 runs. Matt Latos getting a start here today for the Reds. Went 5 innings. He was kind enough to join us from down in the dugout, and although he was sore the last number of days, he gave a lot of credit to the Reds training staff, headed up by Paul Desard, Steve Bauman, Tomas Vera and company, of getting him ready to get out there today, and felt like he had a good feel for everything, really. He says changeup and his breaking ball.
Yeah, you know, he caught his breaking ball a curveball. I thought he was throwing a slider today, but I'll tell you, I would be very surprised if he did not have a very good year this year.
Well, a 14-game winner last year after the terrible start that we documented.
I'm just watching the hitter's reaction to his stuff, and you know, he comes from a very high arm slot. Latos does. He's a big guy, 6 feet 6 inches tall, and he has a long stride. So when he gets rid of the ball out in front of him, like he gets very good extension, that ball gets on a hitter a lot quicker than it appears. I think he's driven. I think he is very much driven. I think Homer Bailey is. I think they all think that they're #1 starters. And they all are driven to prove that to the rest of the baseball world. And that's a great internal competition that you have going for you.
On the other side, for Justin Masterson, he had a nightmarish first inning. He allowed a couple of home runs, 5 runs, 4 hits, but did not allow another hit over his final 3 innings, and struck out 6 batters in the final 3 innings.
I thought he threw the ball very well after that. And I think he looks back at this ball game, and in fact, he wants to break it down by video. You know, the first pitch fastball he threw to Todd Frazier was right down the middle, and he got behind in the count to Xavier Paul. And Paul took advantage of a situation where he knew he was going to get a fastball. There it is right there. They get ahead fastball on Todd Frazier, and Frazier parks it. But other than that, nice breaking ball there. Another one. And I think Masterson's a kind of pitcher that benefits more from humid air, especially because everything he throws moves. And he'll get a little bit more break on his breaking ball than he would, you know, when you're back home in Cleveland, rather than here in a very dry air of Arizona.
It could be very cold air as well in Cleveland.
It could be.
But that's not a bad thing for a pitcher.
No. Especially a guy that likes to pitch inside.
Indians will begin their season on the road in Toronto on Tuesday, April the 2nd. They'll play the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. No worry about weather there, playing inside. And then they go to Tampa, again inside. So not a bad place to start. But then they come home and they will play on April the 8th, a Monday, their home opener against the New York Yankees. A first of 4, then the White Sox come in, followed by 3 against Boston. Swing and a miss to McGinnis. And there's a whole lot of McGinnis being served up on this St. Patrick's Day today. Runner goes, foul off out of play. You and I were talking with a few of the Reds as they came into the dugout before the game when we were down on the field. And there was a time, you and I both remember it well, perhaps you even donned one. I don't know.
What would that be?
When the Reds wore all their uniform, rather than red, had green.
I was not on the ball club the years that they did that. I think they did that for a span of maybe 4 or 5 years.
Awesome.
Really back, I believe, when the Reds spring trained in Tampa. Al Lopez Field.
That's exactly right. Fly ball to right center, and that will end the inning. Santos and Moncrief play long ball the top of the 9th, so the Reds will bat in the bottom of the 9th. Billy Hamilton to lead it off. We're tied at 7.
arrive early and you can participate in all the opening night festivities, including Reds players walking the red carpet in the fan zone. The first 20,000 fans receive a Reds team calendar thanks to Kroger. Plus, stick around after the game for the first post-game fireworks show of the season. So for tickets to this big night, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com/tickets.
All right, Billy Hamilton to lead things off here in the bottom of the ninth inning in a 7-7 game. Hamilton lined out. Stranding 2 is only at bat in the 6th. And that one is taken high. 1 ball and 1 strike. Of course, a lot of folks following closely college basketball this time of year and earlier today for all of us all over the Buckeye State. So very proud of Thad Matta and the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the Big Ten Tournament Championship. And we understand they are the number 2 seed in the Western region. And the number 1 seed out here would be Gonzaga. So we wish them well. University of Cincinnati, a little closer to our home front. A number 10 seed playing in the Midwest region. They will play Creighton in the opening round of the tournament. Ohio State will play Iona the opening round of the NCAA tournament. Akron sadly defeating my alma mater yesterday, Chris, Ohio University. There's a swing and a miss, and that's out number 1. But Akron on its way to the tournament. And a lot of schools in our immediate area as well.
Billy just trying to slap that ball to stay alive right there. It looked like his heart was in it, but the rest of his body was not. Body going one way, swing going the other, and 1 up and 1 down. It'd been nice to see Billy Hamilton on base. Show some of the folks back at home how he terrorized pitchers throughout the minor leagues last year.
Cesar is tourist about it. No activity in either bullpen. So the Reds either win it or this one will end in a draw. Chapman to first, and runner is safe at first base. It's a good effort there by McGinnis. His Turris still runs pretty well.
That's one of those plays where what you try to do as a first baseman is get the ball to the pitcher before he gets to first. But what happened right there is that he got the ball to the pitcher at the same time he was crossing the bag. So you've got to take your eye off of something, either the bag or the ball. Try to do something at the same time, and Shaw lost the handle on the baseball.
So now Donald Lutz about it. He struck out his only time up. That misses down and in. Ball 1 to Lutz. 7-7 game, last of the 9th inning from here in Goodyear, Arizona. Picked up by McGinnis. There's one. Relay throw. Not going to be in time. So Chris Heisey will have one shot to get the Reds a win with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 9th inning. Heisey homered his only time up. Well, Chris, we will not be televising any more Reds games here on Fox Sports Ohio through the remainder of this Cactus League season. The next time you and I convene will be on opening day, April the 1st, when Mike Scioscia brings the high-octane lineup of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim into Great American Ballpark. Of course, we know about Albert Pujols and Mike Trout and Mark Trumbo. They've added Josh Hamilton. And I think it's more than likely, although not necessarily announced, a foregone conclusion that the opening day starters for each team, barring any injury, Jared Weaver against Johnny Cueto. Doesn't get much better than that as far as an opening day matchup.
Well, you're not kidding about that. I think the eyes of the baseball world will be on Cincinnati for that opening series, and I know that there are a whole bunch of fans who just can't wait to get the season underway.
And, you know, quite honestly, there are probably a whole bunch of players that have been out here with this extended spring training that feel the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe another week they probably wish they had to really fine-tune everything. But 2 weeks from tomorrow, there will be an off day, the second day of the season, as we normally have. On that Tuesday, the same day the Indians open up in Toronto. And then 2 more against the Angels, and then the Nationals come to town.
I'll tell you, the Reds' schedule the first month of the season is not an easy one at all. You mentioned how the Indians are having their home opener against the New York Yankees 4 straight. Reds play the Washington Nationals 2 times in the month of April. They play their in-division rival Cardinals 2 different series in the month of April. Of course, they throw the Angels on top of that, and it's not an easy month at all.
No. No, and let's not forget also for the Reds about playing the Philadelphia Phillies. Some might say, well, they didn't make the playoffs last year. Well, that's right. But there's also a chance they come to town and you see Halladay and Lee and Hamels and that whole game again. Talking about that first month at home, we'll see the Angels, the Nationals, the Phillies, the Marlins, and the Cubbies. Twice on the road in St. Louis, as well as traveling to the nation's capital. And look, you know, when you consider the Marlins and the Cubs were awful last year, the Pirates faded at the end. That one in the air down the left field line and playable. And this is going to end the game. 7-7, and I believe that's going to do it. That is a final. There will be no extra innings. So, the Reds and the Indians here on Fox Sports Ohio and Sports Time Ohio. Battle to a 7-7 tie with the Indians scoring 3 in the 9th inning to tie it up.
Tom, I enjoyed it very much. It's been a long winter without seeing you. You did a great job on football.
Well, I saw you a lot of times. I saw you a lot.
Getting ready for baseball season. Between now and spring training, you've got 2 weeks to get your game face on and be ready to go. I'm looking forward to it.
I like to get the sun face on a little bit. I just got into town. I'm a little whiter than the rest of you guys that have been out here.
You are. Been painting closets for the last couple of months.
7-7, our final. Again, we remind you, on Sports Time Ohio, tomorrow they'll have Indians baseball. So tune in for that. Fox Sports Ohio have our nightly show at 10 o'clock. Reds Live, spring training style. Chris, Jim, Jeff, and company. And opening day, 2 weeks from tomorrow, the Reds and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Thanks to Josh Hall, our producer, Brian Hunterman, our director, and our entire crew. For Chris Welsh, Matt Underwood, Rick Manning, I'm Tom Brenneman. Have a great weekend.